The clock ticks. Another day unfolds not quite by your design, but by a pattern so familiar it feels like your own skin. You move through the scenes of your life, sometimes a spectator to your own actions, a performer who knows the lines but has forgotten the meaning behind them. It is a quiet unease, a whisper that asks, is this truly me, or a role I have learned to play so well I can no longer distinguish the costume from the self? This subtle sense of impersonation often begins inaudibly, a faint background noise to the bustling symphony of daily life, until one day it becomes a silence so profound it drowns out everything else. You might find yourself at a celebration surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses, yet a part of you remains an outsider looking in, meticulously performing joy while feeling an inexplicable hollowness. We are all born into a world rich with narratives, stories told to us by our families, our culture, the society that cradles us. These narratives are the unseen scripts, the invisible ink on the pages of our lives. They offer us roles to inhabit, characters to become. The good daughter who never disappoints the strong man, who never shows vulnerability. The successful entrepreneur who works 80-hour weeks. The ever-accommodating friend who rarely says no. These scripts are not inherently malicious. Often they are handed down with the best intentions, a map believed to lead to safety, acceptance, and a conventional form of happiness. They provide a sense of belonging, a framework for understanding our place in the grand tapestry of humanity, shaping our aspirations and our definitions of a life well lived. Think of these scripts as well, worn paths through a dense forest. They are clear, easy to follow, and they promise a certain destination, one often approved by those who walked before us. Following them can feel safe, even comforting, especially in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain. There is a predictable rhythm, a known outcome, or so it seems. You say the expected things you make, the anticipated choices, you follow the established career ladders, and you are often rewarded with approval, sometimes even admiration and material success. Yet beneath this surface of conformity, a deeper self may stir, a self that questions the script it has been given, often without fully understanding why. This is the part of you that feels a faint discord when the laughter in the room does not quite reach your heart, or when the accolades for a job well done ring hollow. It is the authentic self, the true author of your being, longing to pick up the pen and write its own story. A story that might deviate wildly from the prescribed plot. These unseen scripts are powerful precisely because they are often unconscious. We absorb them from our earliest years like the air we breathe. They become our internal compass, guiding our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, often without our explicit consent or even our awareness. We believe we are making free choices, when in reality we are often reenacting patterns ingrained by these hidden narratives. The American narrative, for example, often scripts a relentless pursuit of success, typically defined by external markers like wealth, career advancement, and material possessions. This script whispers incessantly that happiness lies just beyond the next achievement, the next promotion, the next acquisition, the bigger house, the faster car. Many follow this storyline diligently, pouring their life force into its demands, only to find themselves standing on a mountaintop of accomplishment, feeling strangely empty, as if the view is not the one their soul yearned for. The script promised fulfillment, but delivered only a more elaborate stage for the same internal play. The feeling of being an actor in your own life, therefore, is a profound signal. It is not a sign of weakness or a personal failing, nor is it an indication that you are somehow broken. Instead, it is a courageous call to awaken a prompt from your deepest essence that there is more to your existence than the roles you have been assigned or have unknowingly adopted. This disquiet, This sense of something being fundamentally misaligned is the beginning of a quest, a sacred journey to unearth the authentic narrative that lies dormant within you. It is an invitation to move from being a mere player in a predetermined drama, a drama possibly written by well-meaning but misguided forces, to becoming the conscious author, director, and star of your unique and profoundly meaningful a story. The path ahead involves understanding these scripts, questioning their origin, challenging their validity, and ultimately reclaiming the power to write a life that resonates with your deepest truth, your most vibrant passions, and your innate wisdom. This journey is not always easy. Often it is challenging and uncomfortable, but it is unequivocally the most rewarding one we can undertake, for it leads us back home to ourselves. There is an undeniable allure to stepping into a role that feels already defined. Think of it as being handed a costume, a set of lines and clear stage directions the moment you enter the grand theater of life. For many, this offers an immediate sense of purpose and belonging. We learn what is expected. We practice the behaviors that garner applause. The student who excels in academics receives praise. The employee who diligently climbs the corporate ladder is seen as successful. The parent who sacrifices everything for their children is deemed virtuous. These pre-written roles often come with built-in rewards, social acceptance, financial security, and a perceived sense of stability. They are the narratives our societies have constructed and refined over generations, presented as proven paths to a good life. The comfort derived from these roles is genuine, at least initially. They provide a shield against the terrifying vastness of existential choice. When the world feels overwhelming, and the question of who am I echoes too loudly, a pre-written script can offer a reassuring answer. It tells you what to value, what to strive for, and how to navigate the complexities of human interaction. It simplifies the world into a more manageable play. The ambitious professional knows the script for success. The devoted partner understands the lines for a loving relationship, and the community leader enacts the role of service. There is a certain efficiency in this, a way to operate without constantly reinventing the wheel of self. We see others performing similar roles, and this shared performance creates a bond, a sense of normalcy and shared reality. This can be incredibly soothing, particularly during times of transition or uncertainty. However, this comfort is not without its hidden perils. The danger lies in the seductive nature of these roles, their capacity to gradually eclipse the authentic self. When we identify too strongly with a particular script, we risk becoming trapped within its confines. The lines we once recited by choice can become the bars of a psychological prison. The applause we once craved can become the chain that binds us to a performance no longer true. The ease of the well-worn path can lull us into a complacency where the whispers of our own unique song are drowned out by the chorus of societal expectation. The more adept we become at playing the role, the further we may drift from the truth of who we are at our core. This drift is often subtle, a series of small compromises and unheeded internal nudges that accumulate over time. Consider the athlete who continues to compete long after their passion has faded, driven solely by the identity and accolades associated with their sport. Or the professional who dedicates decades to a career that provides financial security but starves their soul's craving for creativity or deeper meaning. Think of the individual who consistently plays the role of the peacemaker in their family, suppressing their own needs and opinions to maintain a fragile harmony, only to feel an undercurrent of resentment and invisibility. In each of these scenarios, the pre-written role offered initial benefits but eventually began to exact a heavy toll on the individual's inner life. The script that once provided a sense of direction now feels like a heavy costume, one that is difficult to shed, even when it has become suffocating. The very identity constructed around the role can become a barrier to acknowledging the dissonance between the performance and the performer. The insidious nature of this danger is that the script often masquerades as our true identity. We convince ourselves that the role is who we are. The accolades for the performance are mistaken for love of the self. The external validation becomes the primary measure of our worth. And so we continue to polish the mask, perfect the lines, and seek the applause, even as a quiet despair begins to grow in the unseen chambers of our heart. This is where the true cost becomes apparent, the sacrifice of authenticity for the sake of acceptance. We might gain the world according to the script's definition of success, but in doing so, we risk losing ourselves. The irony is that while these roles are designed to help us fit in and connect, they can ultimately lead to a profound sense of isolation if the connection is with our persona and not our genuine being. This sets the stage for a deeper exploration of the forces that write these scripts and how we can begin to recognize their influence on our lives. From the moment we enter the world, a tapestry of expectations begins to be woven around us, often so subtly that we are unaware of its intricate threads. These expectations are not usually nefarious in intent. They are the hopes, dreams, and often unfulfilled aspirations of our caregivers, our educators, and the broader societal structures we inhabit. They become the invisible architecture of our early lives, constructing a framework of shoulds and should-nots that quietly direct our becoming. The pressure to be good, to be smart, to be successful, to be a certain kind of person, these are the initial drafts of the scripts we often end up living. For the American audience, this is particularly resonant with the enduring narrative of the American dream, which, while promising opportunity, can also impose a heavy burden of specific types of achievement. Consider the weight of familial expectations. A child born into a family of doctors might feel an unspoken pressure to follow in those esteemed footsteps, even if their true passion lies in art or music. A first-generation American child might carry the immense expectation of validating their parents' sacrifices through a very specific definition of academic and professional success, often mirroring what was valued in the family's country of origin or what is perceived as the surest path to assimilation and security in their new home. These familial scripts are often deeply ingrained, fueled by love and a genuine desire for the child's well-being, but they can inadvertently stifle the child's unique inclinations. The narrative becomes, "This is how you will be happy. This is what will make us proud." And the child learns to equate fulfilling these expectations with love and acceptance. The cost of deviation feels immense, potentially risking the very bonds that provide security and a sense of identity. Societal expectations operate on a grander scale, yet their influence is just as personal. The messages are everywhere. Billboards on the highway depict idealized lifestyles. Television shows and movies often portray narrow definitions of success, love, and beauty. The relentless pursuit of youthfulness, the glorification of wealth, the constant emphasis on productivity and busyness, these are all threads in the societal script that many Americans feel compelled to follow. The expectation to own a home by a certain age, to be married with children, to maintain a certain physical appearance, or to achieve a specific level of financial status can feel overwhelming. We are bombarded with images and stories that suggest there is a right way to live, a checklist of accomplishments that define a worthwhile existence. This is amplified by the pervasive nature of modern media, which normalizes these expectations, making them seem like universal truths rather than culturally constructed ideals. Then there are the expectations woven into our educational and professional systems. The drive for perfect grades, the pressure to attend prestigious universities, the competition for high-paying jobs, and the expectation of a linear career progression are all powerful shapers of individual life scripts. In the American context, where individualism and achievement are highly valued, these systems can create an environment where deviating from the expected path feels like a personal failure. The script says success is a straight line upwards, and any detour or pause is viewed with suspicion or a sense of falling behind. This can lead to individuals choosing careers based on societal approval or financial reward rather than genuine interest or personal fulfillment, leading to a deep-seated dissatisfaction later in life. Unmasking these expectations is a critical first step in reclaiming your own narrative. It requires a conscious effort to look beneath the surface of your choices and behaviors. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is this value truly mine, or is it something I inherited or absorbed from my environment? Whose voice am I hearing when I make certain decisions? This process is not about blame or resentment towards those who may have inadvertently imposed these scripts. It is about understanding. It is about recognizing that many of these expectations were formed with good intentions, even if their ultimate effect was to limit your authentic expression. By bringing these often unconscious expectations into the light of awareness, you begin to loosen their hold on you. You create space to question, to explore, and ultimately to choose a path that is more aligned with your own internal compass, rather than the pre-written directives of others. This unmasking is the beginning of true self-authorship. Imagine your wardrobe not filled with clothes, but with faces, an array of carefully constructed personas, each designed for a specific occasion, a particular audience. This is the reality for many of us, as we navigate the complex social landscapes of modern life. The psychologist Carl Jung famously termed this public face the persona, a concept borrowed from the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek theatre. The persona is the compromise between the individual and society on what a man should appear to be. It is the curated self, the one we present to the world, hoping to gain acceptance, approval, and to avoid judgment or rejection. We wear one face for our colleagues, another for our family, a different one still for our friends, and perhaps yet another for the anonymous eyes of social media. Each mask is a carefully tailored presentation, designed to fit the perceived expectations of that specific context. The competent and unflappable professional, the witty and entertaining friend, the supportive and ever-patient partner, the intellectually curious student. These are just a few of the myriad faces we might adopt. We become skilled impression managers, chameleons, adept at shifting our colors to blend seamlessly into different environments. This ability to adapt our social presentation is not entirely negative. It is a necessary skill for functioning in a complex world. It allows for smoother interactions and can facilitate cooperation. However, the problem arises when these faces become so numerous, so deeply entrenched, or so far removed from our authentic inner experience that we begin to lose touch with who we are beneath the masks. We become a collection of roles rather than an integrated self. The exhaustion that comes from maintaining these 1,000 faces is profound. It requires a constant expenditure of psychic energy to monitor our behavior, to adjust our responses to ensure the mask remains securely in place. We are always on stage, always performing. The authentic self, with its unedited thoughts, its raw emotions, its idiosyncratic quirks, is relegated to the green room hidden from public view. This constant self-censorship This vigilance against any slip of the mask leads to a chronic low-grade stress, an inner tension that often goes unacknowledged but subtly erodes our vitality. We might feel a persistent fatigue, a sense of being perpetually drained without understanding its true source. The weight of these performances accumulates, becoming a psychic burden that dims our inner light and constricts our sense of freedom. Moreover, the validation received for these performances is often hollow because it is not directed at our true self. When people praise our competence, our charm, or our helpfulness, they are applauding the mask, not the person wearing it. This creates a deep paradox. The very thing we do to gain connection and acceptance, wearing these faces, ultimately prevents true, authentic connection. We can be surrounded by admirers yet feel profoundly alone, because the self they admire is not the self we experience internally. This feeds into the imposter syndrome, the gnawing feeling that if people truly knew us with all our imperfections and vulnerabilities, they would surely reject us. So the performance continues, and the cycle of masking for acceptance while feeling unseen perpetuates itself. The American landscape, with its emphasis on self-branding and a certain type of outgoing optimism, can inadvertently exacerbate this tendency. The pressure to always be on, to project an image of unwavering confidence and success, can make it particularly difficult to show vulnerability or to admit to struggle. The curated perfection often displayed on social media platforms further intensifies this pressure, creating an environment where authentic self-expression can feel risky. Yet it is precisely in the willingness to be seen in our entirety flaws and all that genuine connection is forged. Breaking free from the tyranny of the thousand faces begins with the courageous recognition that our authentic self, imperfect as it may be, is the only self that can truly connect and experience a life of genuine meaning. This requires us to acknowledge the masks we wear to understand their origins, and to slowly begin the process of letting them fall away, revealing the true face that has been waiting patiently in the wings. This act of unmasking is not about recklessness or a complete disregard for social nuance, but a gradual, courageous movement towards greater internal and external congruence. A life where who we are on the inside aligns more closely with who we present to the world. The curtain falls, the roar of the crowd subsides, the bright lights dim. What remains when the performance is over, and the accolades cease to echo? For those who have built their lives upon the shaky foundation of external validation, the silence that follows the applause can be deafening, a stark reminder of an inner emptiness that no amount of public acclaim can truly fill. This is a profound and often painful realization, particularly in societies like the United States, where success is frequently measured by external achievements and public recognition. We chase the degrees, the promotions, the titles, the perfect family photo, hoping each milestone will finally bring lasting contentment, only to find the goalposts continually shifting and the inner void stubbornly persisting. The pursuit of external validation is a powerful motivator. It drives us to excel, to push our limits, and to achieve remarkable things. The desire to be liked, to be respected, to be seen as valuable by our peers and by society at large is a natural human inclination. However, when this desire becomes the primary engine of our existence, when our self-worth becomes wholly dependent on the opinions and reactions of others, we enter a precarious and ultimately unfulfilling territory. The applause, no matter how loud or frequent, provides only a fleeting sense of satisfaction. It is like a sugar rush quickly consumed, leaving us craving more yet never truly nourishing the deeper hunger of the soul. We become addicted to the external affirmation, a constant chase for the next hit of approval, which ironically distances us further from authentic self-acceptance. This dependence on external applause often leads to a life of inauthenticity. We tailor our actions, our words, and even our beliefs to elicit positive responses. We become experts at reading the room, at understanding what others want to see and hear, and at delivering the expected performance. But what is the cost of this constant shape-shifting? The authentic self, the one with its own unique melody, its own inherent worth, gets buried deeper and deeper under layers of carefully crafted personas. The emptiness we feel is not a void to be filled by more achievements or more praise. It is the aching absence of our own true presence in our own lives. It is the soul's lament for being unseen, unheard, and unexpressed. Consider the successful executive who, despite a string of accomplishments, feels a persistent sense of being a fraud. Their office walls may be lined with awards, their bank account may be substantial, but in quiet moments a sense of hollowness pervades. The applause they receive is for the competent executive persona they have cultivated, not necessarily for the individual underneath, who may harbor doubts, fears, or unfulfilled creative longings. Or think of the social media influencer whose life appears a constant stream of glamorous adventures and perfect moments, yet who struggles with profound loneliness and insecurity when the camera is off. The digital applause, the likes and comments, are a temporary balm on a deeper wound of disconnection from self. The emptiness remains because the performance, however flawless, is not rooted in genuine selfhood. This cycle of seeking external validation to fill an internal void is a trap that many of us fall into. We are conditioned by societal narratives that equate external success with inner peace. But as countless individuals who have reached the pinnacle of conventional success can attest, the two are not intrinsically linked. True contentment, genuine fulfillment arises not from the applause of others, but from a deep and abiding connection with our own authentic self. It comes from living in alignment with our core values, from expressing our unique gifts, and from cultivating a sense of self-worth that is independent of external approval. When the applause fades, as it inevitably will, what truly sustains us is the quiet, unwavering knowledge of our own intrinsic value. The journey, then, is not about seeking more applause from the world, but about learning to applaud our own true selves, to recognize and honor the inherent worth that exists within us regardless of external validation. This is the foundation upon which a life of authentic meaning and lasting joy can be built. A life where the silence that follows the performance is not empty, but filled with the rich, quiet resonance of a self truly known and deeply embraced. The script we are living, when it diverges too sharply from our authentic nature, rarely announces its mismatch with a sudden dramatic flourish. Instead, it often manifests through a constellation of subtle yet persistent symptoms, indicators that something is amiss in the deeper currents of our being. These symptoms are the soul's quiet protests, the cracks appearing in the facade of a life lived on autopilot. Recognizing these signs is crucial because they are not problems to be merely fixed or suppressed, but invitations to look deeper into the narrative we are inhabiting. The experience of quiet quitting, a term that has gained traction in the American workplace where employees do the bare minimum to keep their jobs, reflects this on a societal level. It is often a symptom of profound disengagement, a silent rebellion against scripts that demand exhaustive performance without genuine personal investment or reward. Procrastination, for instance, is frequently more than just poor time management. When we consistently avoid tasks that are ostensibly important or aligned with our stated goals, it can be a sign that these goals are not truly our own. The soul resists being co-opted into a storyline that does not resonate with its essence. Similarly, a pervasive lack of motivation, not the occasional dip in energy, but a chronic anhedonia, a difficulty finding joy or enthusiasm in activities that once brought pleasure, can signal a profound disconnect. It is as if the inner wellspring of vitality has run dry, because it is not being replenished by authentic engagement with life. A persistent feeling of emptiness or meaninglessness, even amidst external achievements, is another powerful indicator. You may have ticked all the boxes of a societally approved script, achieved the milestones and gathered the accolades, yet an inner voice whispers, "Is this all there is?" This existential ennui is the cry of an unlived life, a yearning for a deeper sense of purpose that cannot be found in external validations alone. This void often attempts to be filled with various distractions, overworking, a common American coping mechanism, excessive consumption, addictive behaviors, or the endless scrolling through the highlight reels of others' lives on social media, further masking the underlying deficit. Envy and a tendency to critically judge others can also be symptoms. When we are not living our own truth, we may find ourselves resentful or overly critical of those who appear to be. Envy often points to our own unfulfilled desires, our own unexpressed potentials. It is easier to project dissatisfaction outward than to confront the discomfort of our own misaligned script. The critical eye we cast upon others is often a reflection of the unacknowledged criticism we harbor towards ourselves for not living more authentically. Burnout, too, is not merely a consequence of overwork, but can be a direct result of investing immense energy into roles and scripts that offer little to no intrinsic spiritual or emotional nourishment. It is the exhaustion that comes from a soul depleted by inauthenticity. Physical symptoms, too, can emerge as manifestations of an unlived life. Chronic fatigue, unexplained aches and pains, a weakened immune system. These can sometimes be the body's way of signaling a deep inner discord. The mind-body connection is profound, and when the spirit is consistently suppressed, or a life is lived under the duress of a false script, the body can register that distress. It is important, of course, to rule out medical causes for physical ailments, but it is equally important to consider the possibility that our physical well-being is intertwined with our emotional and spiritual alignment. These subtle disturbances, these persistent nudges of discomfort, are not enemies but allies. They are messages from the inner self, urging us to pay attention, to acknowledge the misalignment, and to begin the courageous work of reclaiming our true narrative. Ignoring them is like continually hitting the snooze button on our soul's alarm clock. Sooner or later, the ringing becomes too insistent to ignore, or the battery simply runs out. The first step toward rewriting your script is learning to listen to these symptoms with curiosity and compassion, understanding them not as failures but as guides, lighting the path back to your authentic life. To live according to a script not truly your own is to pay a daily tax on your soul. This is not a monetary tax easily quantifiable or paid with a simple transaction. It is a tax levied in the currency of diminished vitality, lost creativity, stifled joy, and a quiet, persistent ache for something more, something real. The act of conforming, constantly adjusting ourselves to fit molds, not of our making extracts, a significant toll, often one that accumulates so gradually we may not realize the extent of our debt until we are teetering on the brink of spiritual bankruptcy. Many people, especially in high-pressure, performance-driven cultures common in the United States, are unknowingly paying this exorbitant price for the illusion of safety or the promise of societal approval. One of the most immediate costs is the loss of energy. Maintaining a persona that is incongruent with your inner self requires immense psychic effort. It is like wearing a costume that is too tight or shoes that pinch with every step. You are constantly self-monitoring, self-correcting, and suppressing the spontaneous impulses of your authentic being. This constant vigilance is exhausting. It diverts precious energy that could be used for genuine self-expression, creative pursuits, or meaningful connection into the relentless task of upholding an image. The chronic fatigue many experience may not just be physical, it can be the profound weariness of a soul forced to perform. This depletion can affect every area of life, making even simple tasks feel burdensome and dimming the vibrancy that comes from living an energized, authentic existence. Creativity is another significant casualty. Authentic creativity springs from the depths of our unique inner landscape, from our passions, our curiosities, our vulnerabilities. When we are overly concerned with conforming to an external script or seeking approval, our creative wellspring can become blocked or severely constricted. We hesitate to explore unconventional ideas, we shy away from expressing perspectives that might be unpopular, and we censor the very uniqueness that is the hallmark of true creativity. The artist who paints what they think will sell, rather than what moves their soul, the writer who crafts stories to fit market trends instead of exploring their own burning questions, or the innovator who shelves a brilliant idea because it seems too risky or too far outside the established norms, are all paying the price of conformity with the currency of their creative potential. The world is consequently deprived of the unique contributions they might have made had they been free to follow their own script. Joy, genuine, unadulterated joy, becomes increasingly elusive. The joy derived from external achievements tied to a false script is often fleeting and superficial. It lacks the deep resonance of joy that arises from activities and connections aligned with our authentic selves. When we are merely playing a role, the capacity for spontaneous delight, for playful engagement, for the simple pleasure of being present in the moment diminishes. The pursuit of a scripted happiness often leads to a landscape devoid of the unexpected, vibrant colors of authentic joy. We might experience moments of pleasure or relief, but the underlying hum of dissatisfaction, a sense of something missing, persists because the joy we are chasing is not sourced from within. This often leads to a cycle of seeking more external stimulation, more achievements, more distractions, in an attempt to manufacture a joy that can only be truly found by aligning with our inner truth. Perhaps the most profound cost is the gradual erosion of our connection to our authentic self. The more we invest in the script, the more distant our true voice becomes, until we may no longer even recognize its whispers. This self-alienation is the deepest wound, a spiritual loneliness that no amount of external company or success can heal. It is the feeling of being a stranger to oneself. The script becomes so dominant that it dictates not only our actions but our very sense of identity. We lose touch with our innate wisdom, our core desires, our unique purpose. The tragedy here is not just the personal suffering it entails, but also the loss of what that authentic self could have offered to the world. Each unlived authentic life is a unique note missing from the symphony of humanity. The high cost of conforming demands that we pause to consider if the price we are paying for fitting in is worth the profound sacrifice of our own true being. It compels us to ask if there is another way to live, a way that honors the script written in our soul rather than the one imposed by the world. We navigate our days making countless decisions, uttering innumerable words and holding onto a host of beliefs that shape our reality. But have you ever paused in the midst of this relentless flow to ask a fundamental question: whose voice is truly speaking through me? Is the path I am on paved with my own authentic desires, or is it a well-trodden road built by the expectations of others, the echoes of my upbringing, or the pervasive narratives of my culture? This process of discernment between your own voice and the internalized echoes of others is a pivotal moment in the journey of reclaiming your script. It is the moment you begin to question the authorship of your life story, a profoundly courageous act. The internalized echoes can be remarkably subtle. They often masquerade as our own thoughts, our own deeply held convictions. The shoulds and oughtos that govern much of our behavior frequently originate from external sources: parents, teachers, societal norms, religious doctrines, or even the curated ideals presented in media. These echoes become so integrated into our psychic framework that we mistake them for the inherent truth of our being. For example, the belief that one must always be busy and productive to be valuable, a prevalent sentiment in many Western societies, particularly the United States, might not be a personally derived value, but an echo of a relentless work ethic, ingrained from a young age. The constant striving for external validation through achievements may not stem from an intrinsic desire, but from an echo that whispers, "Your worth is conditional upon what you accomplish." To begin distinguishing your voice from these echoes requires a practice of mindful self-inquiry. It involves stepping back from the immediate stream of thoughts and feelings and observing them with a non-judgmental curiosity. When a strong opinion arises, ask yourself, where did I learn this belief? When a particular fear surfaces, inquire into its origins. Is this a fear born from my own direct experience? Or is it an inherited anxiety, a borrowed apprehension? This is not about discarding all learned wisdom or rejecting every piece of external guidance, but about critically examining the narratives that have shaped you and consciously choosing which ones to retain, which to revise, and which to release. This reflective process is like an archaeological dig into your own psyche, carefully brushing away the layers of accumulated debris to unearth the authentic structures beneath. The voice of your authentic self often speaks in a different tone than the echoes of external scripts. It tends to be quieter, more intuitive, less driven by fear or the need for approval. It is the voice that emerges in moments of stillness, in quiet contemplation, or when you are deeply engaged in an activity that truly brings you alive. It might express itself through a sudden insight, a gut feeling, a sense of rightness, or a gentle pull towards a particular path, even if that path seems unconventional or risky. The American writer and mythologist Joseph Campbell spoke extensively about following your bliss, which is essentially an encouragement to heed this authentic inner voice that guides you towards what is truly life-affirming for you, even if it defies conventional wisdom or societal expectations. Learning to trust this inner guidance system over the louder, often more critical echoes of external authority is a key aspect of self-authorship. The challenge lies in the fact that for many of us, these external echoes have been our primary guides for so long that our own inner voice has become faint, almost inaudible. We may have learned to distrust it or to dismiss its insights as impractical or unrealistic. Reconnecting with your authentic voice is therefore a process of resensitization, of learning to listen anew. It might involve creating more space for quiet in your life, engaging in practices like meditation or journaling, or simply spending time in nature where the noise of societal scripts can recede, allowing your inner truth to emerge. As you begin to honor this voice, even in small ways, it will grow stronger, more distinct, and more reliable. You will start to feel a shift from living a life of reaction and conformity to a life of conscious creation and authentic expression. The power to distinguish your true voice from the echoes is the power to choose your own script, to write a story that is uniquely and magnificently yours. This discernment is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice, a commitment to listening deeply to the truth that resides within. We now venture into the second part of our journey together, unmasking the ghostwriter, understanding the forces at play. To truly reclaim authorship of our lives, we must first understand the often invisible forces that have been shaping our scripts, sometimes without our knowledge or consent. And there is perhaps no greater guide in this endeavor than the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung. While Sigmund Freud famously explored the personal unconscious, focusing on repressed individual experiences, Jung expanded this concept dramatically, introducing the idea of a collective unconscious, a deeper universal layer of the human psyche shared by all humanity. Jung's work offers profound insights into why we adopt certain personas, why we fear certain aspects of ourselves, and how the vast power of the unconscious mind writes much of the story we believe to be uniquely our own. His ideas, while complex at times, can be made accessible and are incredibly relevant to the modern American experience of seeking authenticity in a world that often demands conformity. Jung proposed that our conscious mind, the ego, is merely the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lies the personal unconscious, containing our forgotten memories, repressed desires, and undeveloped aspects of our personality. But even deeper is the collective unconscious, a reservoir of archetypes, primordial images, and patterns of behavior that are a legacy of human ancestral experience. These archetypes, such as the hero, the mother, the wise old man, the shadow, and the persona itself, are not specific memories but universal psychic predispositions that influence how we perceive the world and react to life events. They are the unseen templates, the psychic DNA that contributes to the common themes and motifs we find in myths, legends, and our own individual life stories across cultures and throughout time. For instance, the drive to conform, the impulse to create a socially acceptable face, is linked to the persona archetype, a necessary mediator between our individual self and the external world. However, as Jung cautioned, an over-identification with the persona at the expense of the total self leads to a shallow and inauthentic existence. The power of the unconscious, in Jung's view, is immense. It is not merely a dumping ground for unwanted material, but a dynamic source of wisdom, creativity, and transformative potential. It communicates with us through dreams, symbols, synchronicities, and those intuitive nudges we often dismiss. When we are living out a script that is not our own, a script largely dictated by external expectations or unexamined familial and cultural inheritances, the unconscious will often signal this misalignment. This might manifest as feelings of emptiness, anxiety, inexplicable sadness, or a recurring sense of dissatisfaction that we discussed earlier. Jung saw these symptoms not as pathological in themselves, but as vital messages from the self, the archetype of wholeness that represents the entirety of our psychic being, both conscious and unconscious. The self is always striving for integration, for the harmonious union of all aspects of our personality. Understanding the unconscious is like learning to read the invisible ink of our life scripts. It involves paying attention to the symbols that emerge in our dreams and a willingness to explore the aspects of ourselves we might prefer to keep hidden, what Jung termed the shadow. The shadow contains all the qualities we deem unacceptable or negative about ourselves, often because they were disowned by our family or culture. Ironically, Jung believed that the shadow also holds a great deal of our vitality and creative energy. By refusing to acknowledge and integrate these disowned parts, we remain fragmented, and our life scripts remain incomplete or inauthentic. Many Americans, often driven by a cultural emphasis on positivity and strength, may find it particularly challenging to confront their shadow. But it is precisely in this confrontation that true psychological gold can be found. Jung's framework provides us with a map to navigate the often murky waters of our inner world. His concepts give us a language to understand the powerful forces that often operate beneath the surface of our awareness, shaping our choices, our relationships, and our sense of who we are. By learning to engage with our unconscious mind, by paying attention to its messages, and by courageously exploring both the light and dark aspects of our psyche, we can begin to unmask the ghostwriters of our lives. This unmasking is not about blaming external forces, but about recognizing their influence and reclaiming our power to make conscious choices about the kind of life script we truly want to live. This lays the foundation for us to delve deeper into specific aspects like the shadow and the roles of family and culture in our next chapters. Within each of us, according to Carl Jung, resides a shadow, an aspect of our unconscious mind that houses the parts of ourselves we have disowned, repressed, or deemed unacceptable. This is not necessarily an evil or malevolent part, though it can certainly contain darker impulses if they have been severely suppressed. Rather, the shadow is the sum total of all that we have chosen not to be either consciously or unconsciously. It is the unlived potential, the negated desires, the personality traits that did not fit the approved script dictated by our family culture or our own conscious ego. In the often bright, optimistic, and success-oriented culture of America, acknowledging the shadow can feel counterintuitive, even threatening, yet it is an essential step in reclaiming a complete and authentic life script. The formation of the shadow begins in early childhood. As we learn what behaviors elicit approval and which ones lead to disapproval or punishment, we start to push certain aspects of our emerging personality into the background. The child who is repeatedly told to be quiet and not express anger may learn to repress their assertiveness and their capacity for righteous indignation. These qualities then recede into the shadow. The child praised for their academic achievements, but not for their artistic inclinations, might push their creative self into this hidden realm. Essentially, whatever does not align with the dominant persona, the mask we present to the world, gets relegated to the shadow. This process of disownment is often a survival mechanism, a way to secure love and belonging in our formative environments. We learn to adapt, and the price of this adaptation is the fragmentation of our wholeness. The paradox of the shadow is that the more we try to deny or suppress it, the more power it can exert over us, often in unconscious and destructive ways. Unacknowledged shadow aspects do not simply disappear, they tend to project themselves onto others. We see in others the very traits we have disowned in ourselves, and we often judge, condemn, or are irrationally irritated by them. For instance, an individual who has repressed their own ambition might be overly critical of ambitious colleagues. Someone who has denied their own vulnerability might scorn those who openly express sadness or fear. This projection mechanism is a way the psyche tries to deal with the internal tension created by disowned parts, but it ultimately leads to distorted perceptions and damaged relationships. It keeps us from seeing others clearly and from truly understanding ourselves. Furthermore, unintegrated shadow material can manifest as self-sabotage, inexplicable moods, addictive behaviors, or a persistent feeling of not being good enough. It is the source of much of our internal conflict and psychic unrest. The energy that is bound up in these repressed aspects of ourselves is vitality that is unavailable for conscious creative living. Jung believed that the goal was not to eliminate the shadow, which is impossible, but to integrate it, to bring its contents into conscious awareness and to reclaim the lost pieces of ourselves. This shadow work involves courageously and compassionately exploring these disowned parts, acknowledging their existence and understanding their origins. It means recognizing that often what we have labeled as bad or unacceptable within ourselves may simply be natural human qualities that were once inappropriate or unwelcome in our early environment. Integrating the shadow is not about becoming a dark person, but about becoming a more whole and authentic one. It means reclaiming lost strengths, hidden talents, and suppressed vitality. For example, the repressed anger, when understood and integrated, can transform into healthy assertiveness and the capacity to set boundaries. The disowned vulnerability, when embraced, can lead to deeper intimacy and compassion. Shadow work illuminates the hidden parts of our script, the parts that have been operating from the darkness and influencing our choices without our conscious awareness. By bringing these to light, we gain greater control over our narrative. We can choose to consciously integrate these aspects, transforming them from sources of inner conflict into sources of strength and completeness. This process of meeting and befriending our shadow is a profound act of self-reclamation, a crucial step in moving from a life dictated by unseen forces to a life consciously authored from a place of wholeness and truth. It is the challenging yet ultimately liberating work of becoming more fully human. Lurking within the psychic landscape of nearly every individual is a persistent and often highly persuasive voice, the inner critic. This internal antagonist is a master saboteur tirelessly working to undermine our confidence, question our worth, and keep us confined to familiar, albeit often unfulfilling scripts. The inner critic is the internalized voice of judgment, fear, and limitation, often an amalgamation of past criticisms, parental anxieties, societal pressures, and our own perceived failures. It acts as a relentless script editor, quick to highlight every perceived flaw, every potential misstep, and every deviation from the approved narrative. For many Americans who often grow up in a culture that values high achievement and can be critical of perceived shortcomings, the inner critic can be a particularly powerful and relentless force. The inner critic's primary tactic is to sow seeds of self-doubt. It whispers insidious messages like, "You are not good enough, you will never succeed, who do you think you are, or you are going to make a fool of yourself." These messages often echo specific criticisms we may have received in the past, becoming deeply ingrained beliefs that shape our perception of ourselves and our capabilities. This voice is incredibly adept at exploiting our vulnerabilities and fears. It knows precisely where our insecurities lie, and it targets these areas with relentless precision. The goal of the inner critic, often operating under the guise of protecting us from failure or rejection, is to keep us small, safe, and well within the lines of established, often restrictive scripts. It fears the unknown, it distrusts spontaneity, and it abhors the perceived risks associated with authentic self-expression or stepping outside conventional norms. This internal saboteur can be a significant obstacle to rewriting our life script. Every time we consider a new path, a bold move, or an authentic expression of self, the inner critic pipes up with a barrage of reasons why it is a terrible idea. It might tell the aspiring artist that their work is not original enough, the budding entrepreneur that their business will fail, or the individual seeking more authentic relationships that they are unlovable. The voice of the inner critic often feels like an absolute authority, like it is speaking an undeniable truth about us. This is because it is often a very old voice, one that has been with us since childhood, and its pronouncements have become deeply habitual. We have heard its negative refrains so many times that we mistake them for our own true thoughts and a definitive assessment of our character or potential. The origins of the inner critic are complex. It often develops as a defense mechanism in childhood. If a child grows up in an environment that is overly critical, neglectful, or conditional in its love and approval, they may internalize these external judgments as a way to anticipate and avoid further pain or rejection. The inner critic essentially becomes an internal parent, trying to keep the child part of us in line to prevent us from getting hurt. However, this protective function taken to an extreme becomes a deeply limiting and self-defeating pattern in adulthood. What was once a strategy for survival becomes a barrier to thriving, a constant source of internal warfare. The American emphasis on self-reliance and pulling oneself up by one's bootstraps can sometimes make it difficult to acknowledge the vulnerability that the inner critic preys upon, leading individuals to simply try to tough it out or suppress this internal voice, further strengthening its grip. Recognizing the inner critic for what it is, not an oracle of truth, but a conditioned pattern of thought, is the first step toward disarming it. It involves learning to separate its voice from your own authentic voice. This requires mindfulness, the ability to observe your thoughts without automatically believing them or identifying with them. When you hear that critical voice arise, you can begin to label it. That's the inner critic speaking, rather than, that is me. This creates a crucial space of disidentification. The inner critic thrives in the darkness of unexamined belief, but it begins to lose its power when brought into the light of conscious awareness and challenged with compassion. We will explore practical strategies for engaging with and transforming this internal saboteur in later chapters. But for now, the essential understanding is that this voice is not the ultimate author of your script. You have the power to challenge its authority and to choose a more self-affirming narrative, a script that champions your worth, celebrates your potential, and encourages your authentic expression. Our families are the first ghostwriters of our lives, the initial architects of the scripts we often play out for years, sometimes even for a lifetime without conscious recognition. These familial scripts are potent collections of beliefs, values, emotional patterns, and behavioral expectations passed down through generations. They are not usually handed to us in a neatly bound manual. Instead, they are absorbed osmotically through observation, imitation, and the intricate dance of early family dynamics. While these legacies often carry elements of love, strength, and tradition, they can also transmit limiting beliefs, unresolved traumas, and rigid expectations that subtly steer us away from our authentic paths. For the American listener, whose culture often emphasizes individuality, the idea of deeply embedded familial scripts can sometimes be overlooked, yet their power is undeniable. Consider the unspoken rules that govern many families. These rules might dictate how emotions are expressed or suppressed, what topics are acceptable for discussion, what careers are deemed respectable, or even what constitutes a good son or daughter. A family might have a script that values stoicism and emotional restraint, inadvertently teaching children to suppress their feelings. Another family might operate on a script of high achievement, where love and approval feel conditional upon constant success. Yet another might carry a legacy of anxiety or scarcity thinking, instilling a sense of fear or inadequacy in its members. These scripts become part of our psychological DNA, shaping our worldview, our relationship patterns, and our definition of self, often before we have the cognitive capacity to question or analyze them. We internalize these messages, and they become the normal against which we measure ourselves and the world. The power of these inherited scripts lies in their deep emotional roots. They are often intertwined with our earliest experiences of love, belonging, and security. To deviate from the family script can feel like a betrayal, like risking the very connections that are fundamental to our well-being. This fear of emotional exile or disapproval can be a powerful deterrent to exploring our own authentic desires or questioning the validity of the inherited narrative. A young adult from a family that highly values a specific professional path, like medicine or law, might feel immense guilt or internal conflict if their true passion lies elsewhere, perhaps in a less conventionally secure or prestigious field. The American emphasis on family values, while often positive, can sometimes reinforce these scripts, making it harder for individuals to carve out a path that honors their unique soul. It is crucial to understand that these familial legacies are not always about overt control or malicious intent. Often parents and caregivers are simply passing on what they themselves learned, what they believe to be true, or what they feel will best protect their children and ensure their success in the world. They too were likely recipients of inherited scripts from their own families. The challenge is that these scripts can become outdated, unsuited to the individual's unique temperament or the evolving context of their life. What once served as a guide or a source of strength for one generation can become a constricting cage for the next. Recognizing these patterns is not about assigning blame to our families, but about understanding the complex interplay of influences that have shaped our internal landscape. The process of unmasking these familial scripts involves a gentle yet honest exploration of our family history, our upbringing, and the overt and covert messages we received. What were the recurring themes in your family? What were the celebrated values? What was implicitly or explicitly discouraged? Journaling can be a powerful tool here, as can conversations with other family members if approached, with openness and a desire for understanding rather than confrontation. Sometimes patterns only become visible when we step back and observe the larger family system with a compassionate and curious eye. For example, if there is a history of people-pleasing or difficulty with conflict in a family, it is likely that these tendencies have been passed down. As we become aware of these inherited scripts, we gain the power to choose which parts of the legacy we wish to carry forward, which parts no longer serve us, and which new, more authentic storylines we want to weave into our own life's tapestry. This conscious sifting of our familial inheritance is a vital step in reclaiming our personal authorship and ensuring that the pen truly rests in our own hand. Beyond the intimate sphere of family, the broader culture, we are immersed in acts as another powerful ghostwriter, subtly yet profoundly shaping the scripts we live by. Cultural conditioning is the process by which we internalize the norms, values, beliefs, and behaviors of the society around us. These societal scripts are like the invisible ink on the pages of our collective consciousness, dictating what is considered desirable, normal, and successful, often without our active consent or critical examination. They define the parameters of acceptable ambition, the nature of ideal relationships, the markers of a good life, and even the ways we are permitted to express emotion or pursue happiness. In the United States, for example, pervasive cultural scripts often revolve around themes of rugged individualism, relentless optimism, the pursuit of material wealth, as a primary indicator of success, and a fast-paced, consumer-driven lifestyle. These cultural narratives are transmitted through a multitude of channels: education systems, media portrayals, advertising, government policies, and even everyday social interactions, all contribute to reinforcing dominant societal scripts. Think about the stories celebrated in popular American films or television shows, often heroizing the self-made millionaire, the tireless innovator, or the individual who overcomes adversity through sheer willpower and an unyielding, positive attitude. While these narratives can be inspiring, they can also subtly implant a very specific and sometimes narrow definition of what it means to be a valued or successful member of society. The pressure to embody these cultural ideals, to fit into these pre-approved societal roles, can be immense, leading individuals to craft personas that align with these expectations, even if they conflict with their deeper authentic selves. For instance, the societal script that equates constant productivity with worth can lead many Americans to feel guilty or anxious if they are not perpetually busy or striving for the next achievement, fostering a culture of burnout and a neglect of deeper emotional or spiritual needs. The influence of advertising and consumer culture is particularly potent in shaping societal scripts in market-driven economies like the United States. Advertisements do not just sell products, they sell aspirations, lifestyles, and identities. They create a narrative that suggests happiness and fulfillment can be purchased, that our worth is tied to what we own or the brands we associate with. This relentless messaging fosters a script of perpetual desire and dissatisfaction, where we are always chasing the next thing that promises to make us feel complete or worthy. The cultural script of consumerism encourages us to look outside of ourselves for validation and happiness, rather than cultivating an inner sense of contentment and meaning. This external focus can significantly detract from the journey of self-authorship, as our energy becomes diverted into acquiring and maintaining an image, rather than exploring and expressing our authentic being. Cultural scripts also dictate, often implicitly, how emotions should be managed and expressed. Some cultures value stoic emotional control, while others encourage more open displays of feeling. In many Western contexts, including aspects of American culture, there can be an implicit script that discourages the full expression of negative emotions, like sadness, grief, or anger, especially in public or professional settings. This can lead individuals to suppress or mask their true emotional experiences, further disconnecting them from their authentic selves and contributing to a sense of inner isolation. The expectation to always appear positive, resilient, and fine can be a heavy burden, preventing genuine emotional processing and authentic connection with others. Unmasking these cultural conditionings requires a critical awareness, a willingness to step outside the prevailing currents of societal thought and examine the narratives we have unconsciously absorbed. It involves questioning the definitions of success, happiness, and a good life that our culture presents. Is this definition truly aligned with my deepest values and desires, or is it an externally imposed script? What would my life look like if I were to consciously choose my own markers of fulfillment, independent of these societal pressures? This is not about rejecting our culture entirely, but about developing a discerning perspective, a capacity to choose which cultural values resonate with our authentic self, and which ones we need to modify or release to write a more genuine life script. As the philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti often emphasized, true freedom comes from understanding the conditioning that shapes us. By understanding the invisible ink of societal scripts, we empower ourselves to become more conscious authors of our own lives, moving beyond mere conformity to a path of authentic self-determination and genuine connection. In the 21st century, a new and formidable ghostwriter has emerged, powerfully shaping our life scripts: the digital realm, and specifically the curated universe of social media. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn have become stages upon which we construct and perform highly edited versions of ourselves, our digital personas. This is a landscape where the allure of crafting a perfect image is incredibly strong, and the illusion of connection often masks a deeper sense of disconnection, both from ourselves and from others. For the American audience deeply enmeshed in digital culture and often early adopters of new technologies, this exploration is not just relevant, it is critical to understanding the contemporary forces that script our lives. The digital persona is often a carefully manicured highlight reel. It showcases our successes, our picture-perfect vacations, our most flattering angles, and our wittiest remarks. The messy, unpredictable, and vulnerable aspects of human existence are typically edited out or glossed over. We become an idealized version of ourselves, a living advertisement for a life that may bear little resemblance to our daily, unfiltered reality. The pressure to maintain this flawless online image can be immense. Each post, each story, each comment becomes part of a performance, a continuous effort to elicit likes, shares, and affirmations which act as a form of digital applause. This can create a relentless feedback loop where our self-worth becomes increasingly tethered to these fleeting and often superficial forms of online validation. The fear of digital judgment or irrelevance can drive us to further perfect our persona, creating an ever-widening gap between our projected self and our authentic experience. This constant performance and comparison culture fostered by social media can be profoundly detrimental to our sense of self. We scroll through feeds filled with the seemingly perfect lives of others, and inevitably we compare our unedited, behind-the-scenes reality with their polished highlight reels. This often leads to feelings of inadequacy, envy, and a diminished sense of self-worth. The digital script tells us that everyone else is living a more exciting, successful, and fulfilling life, creating a pervasive sense of not-enoughness. This comparison is a thief of joy and a significant contributor to the anxiety and depression prevalent in highly connected societies. The very platforms designed to connect us can paradoxically leave us feeling more isolated and less authentic as we chase an unattainable ideal and measure ourselves against curated fictions. Moreover, the nature of online interactions often prioritizes brevity, surface-level engagement, and performative empathy over deep, genuine connection. We accumulate hundreds or even thousands of friends or followers, yet we may lack the intimate reciprocal relationships that truly nourish the soul. The digital persona is skilled at projecting an image of connection, but it often struggles to engage in the messy, vulnerable, and sometimes uncomfortable work of authentic relating. The illusion of constant social availability can also lead to a neglect of face-to-face interactions and the development of deep interpersonal skills that are essential for building meaningful real-world bonds. The time and energy invested in curating and maintaining our digital persona is time and energy diverted from cultivating our authentic self and nurturing genuine relationships. Unmasking the allure and illusion of the digital persona is not about rejecting technology or social media entirely. These tools can offer valuable forms of connection, information, and community when used consciously. However, it is about developing a critical awareness of how these platforms can influence our self-perception and script our lives in ways that are not always aligned with our authentic well-being. It involves recognizing that our online self is often a performance, not the entirety of who we are. It means consciously choosing to prioritize authentic self-expression over the pursuit of digital applause. It requires us to cultivate an inner sense of worth that is not dependent on likes or followers. By understanding the powerful role of the digital persona in modern life, we can begin to reclaim our narrative from its seductive yet often superficial grip, ensuring that our online presence becomes an extension of our authentic self, rather than a substitute for it or a script that dictates it. This mindful engagement with the digital world is a crucial aspect of living an authored life in the contemporary age. The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre offered a powerful and somewhat unsettling concept that illuminates another facet of why we often live by scripts, not our own what he termed bad faith or mauvaise foi. Bad faith is essentially a form of self-deception, a denial of our fundamental freedom and responsibility in shaping who we are. It is the choice to see ourselves as objects determined by external forces, by our past, by societal roles, or by labels, rather than as free subjects capable of creating our own essence through our choices and actions. This concept is profoundly relevant to our exploration because living an unauthentic script is often a manifestation of bad faith. Listeners, in America, a nation founded on ideals of freedom and self-determination, may find Sartre's insights particularly compelling as they challenge us to examine how deeply we truly embrace our individual liberty. Sartre famously proclaimed that existence precedes essence. This means that we are born into the world without a predetermined nature or purpose. We first exist, we encounter ourselves, we surge up in the world, and define ourselves afterwards. There is no fixed human nature, no pre-written script from a divine author or societal mandate that legitimately defines us. We are radically free to choose who we become. However, this absolute freedom can be terrifying. It carries with it an equally absolute responsibility for our lives, for the meaning we create or fail to create. The weight of this freedom can be so overwhelming that many of us flee from it, seeking refuge in the comforting determinism of predefined roles and societal expectations. This flight from freedom into the security of a scripted existence is the essence of bad faith. Consider the waiter in Sartre's famous example, who performs his role with an exaggerated and almost theatrical precision. He is playing at being a waiter, adhering rigidly to the script of how a waiter should behave. In doing so, he is attempting to reduce himself to his role, to deny his freedom to be anything other than a waiter. He is in bad faith because he is choosing to see himself as an object defined by his function rather than as a free consciousness capable of transcending that role. Similarly, we engage in bad faith when we say, "I cannot help it, that is just who I am," or "I have to do this because of my upbringing or my job." These statements are attempts to shirk responsibility for our choices by attributing our behavior to fixed character traits or external necessities, thereby denying our capacity to choose differently. Many of the life scripts we adopt, the dutiful employee, the always cheerful friend, the stoic provider, serve as convenient ways to engage in bad faith, allowing us to avoid the anxiety and burden of creating our own authentic meaning. The allure of bad faith is that it offers an escape from existential anxiety, the dread that comes with confronting our freedom and the lack of any ultimate preordained meaning in the universe. By embracing a script, by becoming the role, we temporarily alleviate this anxiety. We find a ready-made identity, a set of rules to live by, and a sense of predictability in an otherwise uncertain world. However, this relief is bought at a high price, the price of our authenticity and our potential for genuine self-creation. As Sartre argued, even when we are in bad faith, we are still choosing to deny our freedom. The choice is inescapable. Therefore, the act of living by an inauthentic script is not a passive occurrence, but an active, though often unconscious choice to abdicate our self-authorship. Recognizing bad faith in our own lives requires a rigorous honesty and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It means examining the ways we might be using roles, labels, or external circumstances as excuses to avoid making authentic choices. It involves asking ourselves, are we truly condemned to play this part? Or are we choosing this script out of fear, habit, or a desire to avoid the responsibility of our own freedom? The American cultural emphasis on individual responsibility can sometimes create a cognitive dissonance here, as people may believe they are exercising freedom while simultaneously operating from a place of unexamined bad faith through conformity to societal success scripts. The path out of bad faith lies in courageously embracing our freedom, acknowledging our responsibility for creating meaning in our lives, and choosing to define ourselves through our authentic actions rather than by pre-existing roles or labels. This Sartrean challenge is a powerful call to awaken from the slumber of self-deception and to step into the demanding yet ultimately liberating role of being the true author of our own existence, to live a life where our essence is a continuous creation born from our free and authentic choices. The human desire for freedom is often heralded as one of our noblest aspirations, a cornerstone of American identity and democratic ideals. Yet coexisting with this longing for liberty is a profound and often unacknowledged fear of freedom itself. A fear that can drive us to cling tenaciously to familiar scripts, even when they no longer serve us or bring us genuine fulfillment. This fear of freedom paradoxically pushes us towards the very conformity and inauthenticity we may consciously decry. Understanding this dynamic is crucial because it reveals why rewriting our life script can feel so daunting, why the pull of the known, however constricting, often outweighs the call of the unknown, however liberating. The existential psychiatrist Irvin Yalom, building upon the work of thinkers like Sartre and Erich Fromm, eloquently described this tension. Absolute freedom, while potentially exhilarating, also confronts us with our ultimate aloneness, our responsibility for our choices, and the inherent meaninglessness of existence until we ourselves imbue it with meaning. There are no cosmic guarantees, no preordained paths that ensure a successful or happy life. This realization can induce a profound existential anxiety, a dizziness, as Kierkegaard described it when faced with the abyss of infinite possibilities. In this state of unease, the structured, predictable nature of a societal or familial script can feel like a life raft in a stormy sea. It offers prescribed roles, clear expectations, and a sense of direction, relieving us temporarily of the burden of radical self-determination. The American cultural landscape, with its emphasis on endless choice and self-invention, can ironically amplify this fear of freedom for some. While the land of opportunity narrative promises limitless potential, it can also create a pressure to make the right choices, to constantly reinvent oneself, and to live up to an idealized image of the autonomous, successful individual. This can be overwhelming. The sheer number of choices available in modern life, in career, in relationships, in lifestyle, can lead to a kind of decision paralysis or a retreat into more conventional scripts where the choices seem pre-made and less fraught with personal responsibility. The fear is not of lacking options, but of being solely accountable for the options chosen and their consequences. It is easier to follow a map, even if it leads to a destination we do not truly desire, than to navigate uncharted territory with only our inner compass to guide us. Clinging to familiar scripts also provides a sense of identity, however manufactured. These scripts often come with labels: the doctor, the good parent, the successful entrepreneur, the rebel. These labels, while potentially limiting, can also offer a feeling of coherence and belonging, a way to understand who we are in relation to others and to society. The fear of freedom then becomes intertwined with the fear of losing this constructed identity. If I am not this role, if I do not follow this script, then who am I? This existential question can be terrifying. The void of not knowing can feel more threatening than the discomfort of an inauthentic but familiar identity. We might intellectually understand that these roles are not the totality of our being, but emotionally the prospect of shedding them can feel like a form of psychic death. Furthermore, familiar scripts offer a degree of predictability and perceived safety in our relationships. We learn how to interact within these scripted roles. We know the expected responses, the social dances. To step outside these scripts is to risk disrupting these established patterns, potentially leading to misunderstanding, conflict, or even rejection from those who are comfortable with our familiar persona. This fear of social disapproval or relational loss is a powerful enforcer of conformity. The desire for connection is fundamental, and the perceived threat of jeopardizing these connections by embracing our authentic freedom can lead us to perpetuate scripts that stifle our true selves. This is why the journey of reclaiming our narrative often requires not just individual courage, but also the cultivation of relationships that can support our authentic unfolding. Understanding this deep-seated fear of freedom allows us to approach our own resistance to change with greater compassion, and to recognize that the desire for the familiar is a very human response to the inherent uncertainties of an unscripted life. Yet it is only by courageously embracing our freedom that we can truly begin to write a story that is authentically our own. A story rich with the meaning we ourselves create. The unwritten rulebook of our lives, the script we often follow unconsciously, is not solely drafted by familial legacies, societal norms, or existential anxieties. Often one of the most powerful and insidious ghostwriters is trauma, the lingering impact of past painful experiences that continue to shape our present reality, our relationships, and our perception of self. These wounds, whether large or small, overt or insidious, can compel us to adopt specific life scripts designed primarily for survival and protection, rather than for authentic expression and fulfillment. Understanding how trauma writes these scripts is essential for anyone seeking to reclaim their narrative, especially within the American context, where despite growing awareness, the long-term impact of trauma is still frequently misunderstood or minimized. Trauma is not merely the event itself, but the wound left behind, the way the experience becomes encoded in our minds, our bodies, and our nervous systems. When faced with overwhelming experiences, especially during childhood or periods of intense vulnerability, our psyche devises coping mechanisms to manage the unmanageable. These coping mechanisms can then crystallize into life scripts. For instance, a child who experiences neglect or abandonment may develop a script of intense self-reliance, a fierce independence, that while appearing strong can make it difficult to form intimate connections or to trust others. The script says, "I must do everything myself because no one else can be counted on." A belief born from pain designed to prevent future hurt. Similarly, an individual who endured harsh criticism or humiliation might adopt a script of perfectionism, believing that if they can just be flawless, they will finally be safe from judgment. This script can drive them to great external achievements, but it is fueled by fear, not by joy or authentic aspiration. Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, a concept increasingly recognized in American health and social discourse, refer to various forms of abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction experienced by children. Research has shown a strong correlation between a high ACE score and a wide range of physical and mental health problems in adulthood. What is less explicitly discussed is how ACEs also become powerful ghostwriters, forging scripts of distrust, low self-worth, hypervigilance, or a tendency towards unhealthy relationship patterns. A script might be, "I am unlovable," leading to a pattern of seeking out partners who confirm this negative self-view. Or it could be, "The world is a dangerous place," resulting in chronic anxiety and an inability to feel safe or relaxed. These are not character flaws, but deeply ingrained survival scripts written in the language of past pain. Trauma scripts often manifest in the shadow, the disowned parts of ourselves. The feelings associated with the trauma, shame, fear, rage, helplessness, might be pushed into the unconscious because they were too overwhelming to process at the time. These suppressed emotions, however, do not disappear. They continue to exert influence from the shadows, shaping our reactions to present-day situations that may unconsciously trigger those old wounds. For example, a person with a trauma script of being controlled might react with disproportionate anger to any perceived attempt to limit their autonomy, even in benign situations. Their present script is being hijacked by an old trauma. The body itself can hold on to trauma, as Bessel van der Kolk compellingly argues in his widely read book, The Body Keeps the Score. Chronic muscle tension, unexplained pain, or a persistent state of fight or flight can all be somatic manifestations of unprocessed trauma, influencing our capacity for joy, presence, and connection. Unmasking trauma as a ghostwriter is a delicate but profoundly liberating process. It often requires more than just intellectual understanding. It may necessitate professional support to safely navigate and heal these deep-seated wounds. The goal is not to re-traumatize, but to bring compassionate awareness to how past experiences are still influencing our present life script. It is about recognizing that the scripts forged in trauma were once necessary for survival, but they may no longer be serving us. In fact, they may now be limiting our capacity for a full and authentic life. As we begin to understand and heal these traumas, we loosen their grip on our narrative. We can start to differentiate between the fear-based reactions of the past and the authentic responses of our present healed self. This healing journey allows us to consciously choose new scripts based on safety, self-worth, and the possibility of genuine connection, rather than being perpetually reenacting the pain of the past. This is where the power of rewriting our story becomes most potent in transforming past wounds into sources of wisdom, strength, and profound self-reclamation. We return now to a core theme, a resonant ache that often underpins the desire to rewrite our life scripts, the profound loneliness of not being seen for who we truly are. This is not the loneliness of physical solitude, though, that can be challenging in its own right. This is a deeper existential loneliness, a spiritual isolation that arises when the self we present to the world, our persona, our carefully constructed script, is fundamentally disconnected from the authentic self that resides within. You can be surrounded by people in a bustling American city, at a vibrant social gathering, or within a seemingly close-knit family, yet experience an acute and painful sense of invisibility. This happens when the connections we have are with our mask, not with our essence. Imagine attending an awards ceremony where you are being honored for a significant achievement. The applause is thunderous, the praise is effusive, yet a part of you feels strangely detached, as if they are celebrating someone else. The person being feted is the public persona, the one who fulfilled the script of success. But the inner self, the one with its private doubts, its unexpressed vulnerabilities, its quiet complexities, remains unseen, unacknowledged. This discrepancy creates a painful chasm. The external validation fails to touch the core of your being because it is not your core being that is being validated. This is the loneliness. Carl Jung alluded to a loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from being unseen and unheard in our truest form. It is the loneliness of having no one to communicate the essential things to the things that truly make us who we are. This type of loneliness can be particularly acute in a culture like the United States, which often values image presentation and outward success. The pressure to project confidence, competence, and constant positivity can make it difficult to reveal the more vulnerable, less polished aspects of ourselves. We learn to hide our insecurities, our fears, our perceived weaknesses, fearing that if these were exposed, we would be judged, rejected, or deemed less than. So we perfect our scripts, our performances, ensuring that only the most acceptable and admirable parts of ourselves are on display. The tragedy is that it is often in these hidden, vulnerable spaces that our deepest humanity resides, and it is from these spaces that true connection is born. By consistently hiding these parts, we inadvertently starve ourselves of the authentic intimacy and understanding we crave. The people in our lives, co-workers, friends, even family members, may genuinely like and appreciate the persona we present. They may offer support, praise, and companionship. Yet, if these interactions are primarily with our scripted self, a fundamental layer of connection remains missing. We might share laughter, we might discuss current events, we might even offer mutual support in times of practical need, but the deeper conversations, the ones where souls truly meet, are often absent. There is an unexpressed longing to be known, to be accepted for our whole self, not just the edited version. This longing can manifest as a persistent sense of alienation, a feeling of being perpetually on the outside looking in, even within our closest relationships. It is the ache of a soul that yearns to be recognized in its entirety, but is met only with the reflection of its carefully constructed facade. This loneliness is not a personal failing. It is a consequence of living inauthentically, a result of the gap between our performed self and our true self. It is a signal that our current life script is not nourishing our deepest need for genuine connection and self-expression. The more we rely on the script to navigate the world, the more profound this loneliness can become, because the script by its very nature is a barrier to authentic relating. It is a defense mechanism that, while offering a perceived sense of safety, also creates an impenetrable wall around our true heart. Recognizing this loneliness of being unseen is the first courageous step toward dismantling these walls. It is an acknowledgement that the scripts we have adopted to gain acceptance may in fact be the very things that are keeping us from the authentic connection we so deeply desire. This realization paves the way for part 3 of our journey, where we will explore the tools and practices for reclaiming the pen and beginning to write a life script that allows us to be truly seen and authentically connected. We now embark on the third vital part of our exploration, reclaiming the pen tools for rewriting your script. Having unmasked the ghostwriters, the familial, societal, and internal forces that shape our unconscious narratives, it is time to learn how to take back the pen to become the conscious authors of our own lives. One of the most profound and often most challenging first steps in this reclamation is cultivating the courage to be disliked. This is not an invitation to be deliberately abrasive or antisocial, but rather a call to liberate ourselves from the tyranny of needing constant external validation and approval. The idea popularized by the Japanese philosophers Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga draws on Adlerian psychology and has found a significant audience in America precisely because it speaks to a deep-seated cultural tension between individualism and the pervasive desire for social acceptance. The fear of being disliked, of being judged or rejected, is a powerful human instinct rooted in our evolutionary past where social belonging was essential for survival. In modern society, while physical survival may no longer directly depend on universal approval, this deep-seated fear often translates into a relentless pursuit of external validation. We morph our personalities, we suppress our true opinions, and we tailor our actions to fit in, to be liked, to avoid disapproval. This constant seeking of approval, however, makes us prisoners of others' expectations, our life script dictated by the whims and judgments of those around us, rather than by our own internal compass. The courage to be disliked is the courage to prioritize our own authentic values and self-expression over the desire for universal acceptance. It is the understanding that it is impossible to please everyone, and that attempting to do so is a recipe for inauthenticity and exhaustion. Alfred Adler, a contemporary of Freud and Jung, believed that all problems are ultimately interpersonal relationship problems. He argued that much of our unhappiness stems from trying to meet the expectations of others or from worrying about how others perceive us. The Adlerian concept of separation of tasks is crucial here. It means clearly distinguishing what is our task from what is another person's task. Whether someone likes you or dislikes you is ultimately their task, their perception, their reaction. It is not your task to control or manipulate their feelings. Your task is to live authentically according to your own values and principles. When we truly internalize this separation, we free ourselves from an enormous burden. We no longer need to perform or contort ourselves to win approval. We can act from a place of inner integrity, knowing that how others respond is their business, not ours. This does not mean becoming indifferent to others or disregarding their feelings entirely. Healthy relationships involve empathy, respect, and consideration. However, the courage to be disliked means that our fundamental sense of self-worth and our core decisions are not contingent on external approval. It means we are willing to disappoint others if upholding our authenticity requires it. This can be incredibly challenging, especially for those raised in environments where approval was conditional or where pleasing others was a primary survival strategy. It requires us to confront our deepest fears of rejection and abandonment. Yet it is precisely in this confrontation that true freedom lies. The freedom to express our genuine thoughts even if they are unpopular. The freedom to pursue our unique passions even if they do not conform to societal expectations. The freedom to say no to requests that violate our boundaries or drain our energy. Cultivating this courage is a practice. It begins with a conscious decision to value our own authentic self-expression above the need for universal acclaim. It involves developing a stronger inner locus of control, where our self-esteem is rooted in our own values and character, rather than in external feedback. Each time we choose authenticity over approval, even in small ways, we strengthen this muscle of courage. Perhaps it is respectfully voicing a dissenting opinion in a meeting. Perhaps it is declining a social invitation that feels obligatory rather than joyful. Perhaps it is pursuing a creative hobby simply for the love of it without worrying about external recognition. These small acts of courage build resilience and gradually diminish the power that the fear of disapproval holds over us. As we become more willing to be disliked for who we truly are, we ironically open ourselves up to more genuine and meaningful connections, those based on authentic resonance rather than performative acceptance. This is the foundation of self-authorship, the courageous act of choosing our own script, regardless of whether it receives universal applause. In the often tumultuous and externally focused landscape of modern American life, one of the simplest yet most powerful tools for reclaiming your inner script is the humble act of journaling. This is not merely a diary of daily events, but a dedicated space for introspection. A mirror held up to the soul where you can converse with your authentic self, listen to its whispers, and begin to decipher the narratives that truly belong to you. Many great thinkers, writers, and innovators throughout history have attested to the transformative power of putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard as a means of self-discovery and clarification. Journaling provides a sanctuary, a private, unfiltered arena where the often competing voices of external expectations and inner truth can be explored without judgment. The process of writing is inherently revealing. As you articulate your thoughts, feelings, observations, and intuitions onto the page, patterns begin to emerge. You might notice recurring themes, anxieties, joys, or frustrations that were previously diffuse or unconscious. The act of naming these experiences, of giving them form through language, can demystify them and reduce their unconscious power over you. For instance, consistently writing about a feeling of dissatisfaction in your career might reveal that your current professional script is misaligned with your core values, or unexpressed passions, a realization that might have remained obscured in the busyness of daily life. The blank page offers no pretense, no audience to perform for. It is a space where you can be radically honest with yourself, perhaps for the first time. There are many ways to approach journaling, and no single right way. Some find value in free writing, simply letting their thoughts flow onto the page without censorship or structure. Others prefer a more guided approach, using prompts or specific questions to delve into particular areas of their lives. You might ask yourself, what brought me genuine joy today? When did I feel most like myself? What expectations am I trying to meet? Or what am I truly afraid of? Answering these questions regularly can create a rich tapestry of self-understanding over time. The key is consistency and a commitment to honesty, even when what emerges is uncomfortable or challenges your established self-perception. The journal becomes a trusted confidant, a safe space to explore the shadow aspects, the inner critic, and the inherited scripts we have discussed. Many Americans value practical tools for self-improvement, and journaling offers exactly that, a tangible, accessible method for inner work. Journaling can also be a powerful tool for rewriting limiting beliefs, those deeply ingrained negative assumptions about ourselves and the world that often form part of our inauthentic scripts. Once you identify a limiting belief through your writing, such as "I am not creative" or "I will always be alone," you can then use your journal to consciously challenge and reframe it. You can explore its origins, question its validity, and actively write a new, more empowering belief. This act of consciously rewriting your internal narrative is a direct form of self-authorship. It is taking the pen back from the ghostwriters and actively scripting a more positive and authentic self-concept. This process is not about mere positive thinking, but about a deep engagement with and transformation of the underlying stories that shape your experience of reality. Furthermore, a journal can serve as a record of your journey, a testament to your growth, and a source of insight when facing future challenges. Looking back over past entries can reveal how far you have come, the patterns you have transcended, and the wisdom you have gained. It can show you the evolution of your authentic voice as it becomes clearer and more confident. In a culture that often prioritizes external metrics of progress, a journal offers a deeply personal and qualitative measure of inner development. It is a private chronicle of your unmasking and your becoming. By regularly engaging with this simple practice of journaling, you create an invaluable dialogue with your innermost self-fostering self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the profound clarity that is essential for consciously authoring a life script that is truly your own. A life filled with purpose, passion, and authentic presence. As we embark on the courageous journey of unmasking ourselves and rewriting our life scripts, one of the most essential companions we can cultivate is self-compassion. This is not self-pity, self-indulgence, or an excuse for mediocrity. Self-compassion, as defined by pioneering researcher Dr. Kristin Neff, involves treating ourselves with the same kindness, understanding, and support we would offer to a dear friend who is struggling. It is about recognizing our shared humanity, our inherent imperfection, and offering ourselves warmth and non-judgmental acceptance, particularly when we confront our flaws, our mistakes, or the painful aspects of our past scripts. In a culture like America that often emphasizes strength, relentless improvement, and can be quick to pathologize perceived weaknesses, cultivating self-compassion can be a radically transformative act. The inner critic, which we explored earlier, is often the antithesis of self-compassion. It berates us for our mistakes, it magnifies our perceived inadequacies, and it keeps us trapped in cycles of shame and self-blame. Self-compassion offers a powerful antidote to this harsh, internal voice. Instead of meeting our struggles with self-criticism, we learn to meet them with understanding. When we make a mistake, rather than telling ourselves, "I am such a failure," a self-compassionate response might be, "This is a difficult moment. Everyone makes mistakes. It is part of being human." This simple shift in internal dialogue can have profound effects on our emotional well-being and our ability to learn and grow from challenging experiences. It allows us to acknowledge our pain without being overwhelmed by it. Dr. Neff identifies 3 core components of self-compassion. The first is self-kindness versus self-judgment. This involves being gentle and understanding with ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than harshly judging and criticizing ourselves for our human frailties. It is about actively comforting ourselves, offering ourselves warmth and unconditional acceptance. The second component is common humanity versus isolation. This is the recognition that suffering and personal inadequacy are part of the shared human experience, something that all people go through, rather than something that happens to me alone. This understanding helps us to feel less isolated in our struggles, realizing that imperfection and difficulty are unavoidable aspects of life. Many Americans, particularly those striving for individualized success, might feel pressure to appear invulnerable, and this sense of common humanity can be deeply healing. The third component is mindfulness versus over-identification. This involves taking a balanced approach to our negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. Mindfulness allows us to observe our painful thoughts and feelings without being consumed by them, without getting swept away by the drama of our own internal narrative. We acknowledge the pain without over-identifying with it. This non-judgmental observation creates a space for wisdom and a more balanced perspective to emerge. Instead of "I am my sadness," we can learn to say, "I am experiencing sadness right now." This mindful awareness prevents us from becoming our pain and allows us to respond to it with greater clarity and compassion. Cultivating self-compassion is a skill that can be learned and strengthened with practice. It might involve consciously changing our self-talk, noticing when the inner critic arises, and deliberately replacing its harsh judgments with words of kindness and understanding. It can involve physical gestures of comfort, like placing a hand on our heart when we are feeling distressed. It can also mean engaging in practices that soothe and nurture us, like spending time in nature, listening to calming music, or confiding in a supportive friend. Embracing self-compassion does not mean we stop striving for growth or avoid taking responsibility for our actions. Rather, it provides a more resilient and supportive foundation from which to do so. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we are more likely to learn from our mistakes and to persevere in the face of setbacks. It is the compassionate embrace of our imperfect selves that ultimately allows us to dismantle the old shame-based scripts and courageously write new ones rooted in self-acceptance, authenticity, and the profound understanding that we are worthy of love and belonging exactly as we are. This is a cornerstone of reclaiming our lives. Carl Jung introduced a profound and often misunderstood technique for engaging with the unconscious mind, a practice he called active imagination. This is not idle daydreaming or mere fantasy. Active imagination is a conscious dialogue, a deliberate and focused interaction with the images, symbols, and figures that arise from the depths of our psyche. It is a method for bridging the gap between the conscious ego and the vast landscape of the unconscious, thereby gaining access to insights, wisdom, and transformative energies that are often unavailable to our rational waking mind. For the American listener, often accustomed to more structured problem-solving approaches, active imagination offers a creative and intuitive pathway to self-understanding and to uncovering the authentic narrative within our life. Scripts. The process of active imagination typically begins with a state of relaxed, focused attention. One might start by concentrating on a dream image, a persistent mood, a puzzling symptom, or simply a desire to connect with an unknown aspect of the self. The key is to allow images or figures to emerge spontaneously from the unconscious, without consciously directing or manipulating them. This might involve visualization, meditation, or even expressive arts like drawing, painting, or movement. Once an image or figure appears, the conscious ego then engages with it as if it were a real entity. You can ask it questions, listen to its responses, observe its behavior, and interact with it in a dynamic way. This is not about passively observing, but actively participating in the inner drama that unfolds. Jung believed that the figures encountered in active imagination are often personifications of different aspects of our psyche, particularly archetypal energies or complexes. For example, you might encounter a figure representing your shadow, your inner critic, your unfulfilled potential, or even a wise guide. By engaging in a dialogue with these figures, we can begin to understand their motivations, their messages, and their role within our overall psychic economy. This process can be incredibly revealing, often bringing to light hidden conflicts, suppressed desires, or limiting beliefs that have been unconsciously shaping our life script. It allows us to move beyond simply analyzing our problems with our conscious mind, and instead to directly experience and interact with the dynamic forces at play within us. Consider an individual struggling with a creative block, a common ailment in a culture that values innovation and self-expression. Through active imagination, they might encounter a figure, perhaps a stern judge or a frightened child who embodies the source of their blockage. By engaging with this figure, asking it why it is hindering their creativity, listening to its story, perhaps rooted in past criticisms or fears of failure, the individual can gain a deeper understanding of the unconscious dynamics at play. This dialogue can lead to a transformation of the blocking energy, not by overpowering it, but by understanding and integrating it. The stern judge might soften its criticism. The frightened child might be reassured. This internal reconciliation can then free up the creative energy, allowing it to flow more openly. Active imagination is thus a powerful tool for resolving inner conflicts and unlocking dormant potentials, essential for rewriting a more expansive and authentic life script. It is important to approach active imagination with respect, patience, and a willingness to embrace the unexpected. The unconscious often speaks in a symbolic, metaphorical language that may not always be immediately clear to the rational mind. The insights gained may come not as direct answers, but as shifts in perspective, changes in feeling, or new possibilities for action. Some listeners may find it helpful to record their active imagination experiences in a journal to reflect on the dialogues and images that emerged. While this practice can be undertaken independently, especially for those familiar with introspective work, some individuals may find it beneficial to explore it with the guidance of a Jungian analyst or a therapist trained in this approach, particularly if dealing with deeply rooted or traumatic material. Ultimately, active imagination is an invitation to become an active participant in the rich symbolic life of your own psyche, a gateway to the profound wisdom and creative power that lies within, waiting to inform and enrich the story you are. Writing for yourself. It is a profound method for reclaiming the pen and becoming the conscious author of a life lived from the inside out. As you begin to unmask the ghostwriters of your life and reclaim the pen, one of the most crucial navigational tools you can develop is a clear understanding of your core values. Core values are the fundamental beliefs and guiding principles that dictate what is truly important and meaningful to you. They are the internal compass that, when consciously identified and honored, can direct you towards a life script that feels authentic, purposeful, and deeply fulfilling. Without this clarity, we often drift according to the prevailing winds of societal expectation or the inherited scripts of our past, susceptible to living a life that looks good on the outside but feels hollow within. The American pursuit of happiness can often be misdirected if not anchored in these deeply personal intrinsic values. Identifying your core values is not about aspiring to a list of noble-sounding ideals that society deems admirable. It is about an honest excavation of what truly energizes you, what you stand for, and what gives your life a sense of genuine meaning. These are not values you think you should have, but values that resonate deeply within your authentic self, often revealed through moments of profound joy, or conversely moments of intense frustration when these values are violated. For instance, you might believe that financial success is a core value because it is highly prized in many Western cultures. But upon deeper reflection, you might discover that what truly drives you is a desire for creative expression. Financial independence, as a means to pursue that expression or making a meaningful impact on others. The surface value might obscure a deeper, more authentic motivator. There are several practical ways to begin this process of identification. One powerful exercise is to reflect on times in your life when you felt most alive, most engaged, and most genuinely happy. What were you doing? Who were you with? What qualities were present in those experiences? Conversely, reflect on times when you felt deeply frustrated, resentful, or unfulfilled. What values were being compromised or ignored in those situations? These peak experiences and moments of deep dissatisfaction often act as signposts pointing towards your underlying core values. Another approach involves brainstorming a list of common values such as honesty, integrity, creativity, compassion, adventure, security, learning, community service, etc., and then carefully winnowing down that list to the few, perhaps 5 to 7 values that feel most essential and non-negotiable for you. It is important to distinguish between means values and ends values. Means values are often instrumental things like money status or a particular job that we believe will lead us to an end value, which is a more fundamental state of being or quality of life like happiness, freedom, or love. Often our scripts are built around chasing means values under the mistaken assumption that they will automatically deliver the desired end values. For example, someone might pursue a high-stress, high-paying job believing it will bring happiness only to find themselves financially secure but deeply unfulfilled because their core end value might be connection or peace of mind, which the job actively undermines. Clarifying your core end values helps you to make choices that are more directly aligned with what truly matters to you at the deepest level, rather than getting sidetracked by the pursuit of intermediaries that may or may not lead to your desired state of being. Once you have identified a set of core values, they become the guiding stars for writing and living your new, authentic script. Every major decision, every choice about how to spend your time and energy can be filtered through the lens of these values. Ask yourself, does this opportunity align with my core value of creativity? Does this relationship support my core value of authenticity? Does this career path honor my core value of making a difference? When your actions and choices are congruent with your core values, you experience a sense of integrity, wholeness, and purpose. This alignment generates an intrinsic motivation and a deep sense of satisfaction that external validation can never provide. Your core values become the unwavering architecture of your authored life, providing stability, direction, and a profound sense of, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. This clarity empowers you to say no to scripts that are not your own, and to courageously and joyfully say yes to the unfolding narrative of your most authentic self. As you begin to write your life script with greater intentionality, guided by your core values, an essential skill you must develop is the art of setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines we draw around ourselves that define what is acceptable and unacceptable in our interactions with others and with the world. They are not walls designed to isolate us, but rather gates that allow us to selectively permit entry, preserving our energy, our integrity, and the precious space needed for our authentic self to thrive. In American culture, where a can-do attitude and sometimes a tendency towards overextension are common, learning to set and maintain healthy boundaries is a vital act of self-preservation and self-respect, essential for living an authored life. Without clear boundaries, we become susceptible to the encroachments of others' demands, expectations, and unconscious scripts. We may find ourselves constantly saying yes when we mean no, overcommitting our time and energy to please others, or tolerating behaviors that compromise our well-being or violate our values. This lack of boundaries often stems from a fear of disapproval, conflict, or abandonment, the same fears that drive us to adopt inauthentic personas. However, living without boundaries is like living in a house with no doors or windows, leaving us vulnerable to being depleted, drained, and disconnected from our own needs and priorities. The desire to be helpful, agreeable, or indispensable, common traits, often encouraged, particularly in certain professional or familial roles in the US, can lead to a systematic erosion of personal boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries begins with self-awareness. You must first become clear about your own needs, limits, and values. What behaviors from others make you feel respected, and what makes you feel disrespected or taken advantage of? What are your non-negotiables? What do you need to protect in order to maintain your emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being? This self-knowledge is the foundation upon which effective boundaries are built. It requires you to listen deeply to your own internal signals, your gut feelings, your emotional responses, your sense of rightness. For many, this is a process of relearning to trust their inner wisdom, often after years of prioritizing external expectations or the needs of others above their own. Once you have this clarity, the next step is to communicate your boundaries clearly, respectfully, and assertively. This does not mean being aggressive or demanding. It means stating your needs and limits in a straightforward manner without apology or excessive explanation. For example, you might say, "I am unable to take on that additional project at this time as my current workload is at capacity." Or, "I appreciate your perspective, but I am not comfortable discussing that topic." Or, "I need some time to myself right now. I will connect with you later." This can be particularly challenging in a culture that sometimes conflates assertiveness with aggression, especially for individuals socialized to be more accommodating. However, assertive communication is about respecting yourself and others simultaneously. Maintaining boundaries often requires consistency and a willingness to navigate potential discomfort or pushback. Others who are accustomed to you having porous boundaries may initially resist or misunderstand your attempts to establish new ones. They might try to guilt-trip you, manipulate you, or challenge your limits. This is where your commitment to your authentic script and your core values becomes paramount. It requires courage to hold firm to your boundaries, even in the face of disapproval or conflict. Remember, setting a boundary is not about controlling others. It is about controlling what you allow into your personal space and how you choose to expend your energy. It is an act of profound self-care. Over time, as you consistently honor your boundaries, others will typically learn to respect them, and the relationships that cannot adapt to your authentic self may naturally fall away, making space for connections that are more aligned and supportive. Healthy boundaries are not a sign of selfishness. They are a prerequisite for authentic connection, genuine self-expression, and the sustainable authorship of a life script that truly honors who you are. They create the sacred space within which your true self can flourish, safe from the scripts of others. One of the most practical and empowering expressions of healthy boundaries and a crucial tool in rewriting your life script is learning the art of saying no. For many, especially in service-oriented roles or in cultures like America, where a proactive, yes-can-do attitude is often prized, saying no can feel profoundly uncomfortable, even like a transgression. We may associate it with being unhelpful, selfish, or not a team player. However, the inability to say no to requests, activities, or commitments that do not align with our authentic script or that deplete our precious resources of time and energy is a direct path to burnout, resentment, and a life lived by others' agendas. Mastering the art of saying no is therefore not about negativity or rejection. It is about self-respect, self-preservation, and the courageous act of prioritizing your own authentic life. Why do we find it so difficult to say no? The reasons are often deeply rooted. There is the fear of disappointing others, the desire to be liked and approved of, as we have discussed. There might be guilt associated with prioritizing our own needs, believing it is somehow selfish. Sometimes it is a fear of missing out, a belief that saying no to an opportunity, even one that does not truly excite us, might mean losing something important. In professional settings, especially within the competitive American work environment, there can be a fear that saying no to additional tasks will be perceived as a lack of commitment or capability, potentially jeopardizing career advancement. These fears, often part of our inherited or culturally conditioned scripts, can make no feel like a forbidden word. a word that threatens our sense of security or belonging. The consequence of consistently saying yes when we inwardly want or need to say no is a gradual erosion of our personal sovereignty. Our time becomes filled with obligations that do not nourish us. Our energy is expended on tasks that do not align with our core values or passions. We become overextended, stressed, and resentful, often silently blaming others for overwhelming us when in reality we have failed to protect our own space and resources by not setting clear limits. This people-pleasing tendency, while perhaps offering short-term social rewards, ultimately leads to a life that feels out of our control, a script written by the demands and expectations of everyone else but ourselves. It is a fast track to living an unlived life, where our own deepest desires and authentic pursuits are constantly deferred. Learning to say no effectively and gracefully is a skill that can be cultivated. It begins with the internal permission to prioritize your own well-being and authentic script. Recognize that your time and energy are finite, valuable resources. You have a right and a responsibility to allocate them in ways that are aligned with your deepest values and true aspirations. When faced with a request, take a moment to check in with yourself. Does this align with my authentic script? Do I genuinely have the capacity and desire to do this? Is this a hell yes or a not really? If it is not a clear yes, then no is often the most authentic and self-respecting answer. When you do say no, it can be done with kindness and clarity. You do not always need to provide lengthy justifications or elaborate excuses. A simple "thank you for thinking of me, but I am unable to commit to that at this time," or "I appreciate the offer, but my current priorities do not allow for it," is often sufficient. Sometimes you might offer an alternative if appropriate. "I cannot help with that project, but I can offer this smaller contribution," or "I am not available then, but perhaps another time." The key is to be respectful yet firm. You are not rejecting the person, you are declining the specific request or commitment. Practicing this in smaller, lower-stakes situations can help build your confidence for when more significant boundaries are needed. Each time you authentically say no to what depletes you or misaligns with your script, you are powerfully saying yes to yourself, to your energy, to your values, and to the life you are consciously choosing to author. This reclamation of no is a profound act of self-empowerment, freeing up vital space for your true yeses to emerge. The scripts that unconsciously govern our lives are often built upon a foundation of limiting beliefs, deeply ingrained assumptions about ourselves, the world, and our place within it. These beliefs, formed through past experiences, inherited narratives or cultural conditioning, act as invisible walls restricting our potential and shaping our reality. Rewriting your life script necessitates the courageous work of identifying, challenging, and ultimately rewriting these limiting beliefs, transforming your internal dialogue from one of constraint to one of possibility. This process often draws on principles found in cognitive behavioral approaches which are well understood and utilized within the American therapeutic landscape and can be adapted for powerful self-directed change. Limiting beliefs often operate beneath the surface of conscious awareness. They whisper to us in the voice of the inner critic, or manifest as unshakable convictions that feel like absolute truths. Examples abound. "I am not smart enough to pursue that career." "I will never find a loving relationship." "Money is hard to come by." "People cannot be trusted." Or "I am too old to." Change. These beliefs function as self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe you are not capable, you are less likely to take risks or pursue challenging opportunities, thereby confirming your initial belief. If you believe people are untrustworthy, you may approach interactions with suspicion, creating a distance that prevents genuine connection, reinforcing your worldview. The American cultural narrative of "you can be anything you want to be" can sometimes create a painful dissonance when an individual is held back by these powerful yet often unexamined internal limitations. The first step in rewriting these beliefs is to bring them into conscious awareness. Journaling, as we discussed previously, can be an invaluable tool here. Pay attention to recurring negative thought patterns, instances of self-sabotage, or areas where you consistently feel stuck or inadequate. Ask yourself what underlying belief might be fueling this experience. For instance, if you repeatedly avoid public speaking despite desiring to share your ideas, the underlying limiting belief might be, "I have nothing valuable to say," or "people will judge me harshly." Once a limiting belief is identified, the next crucial step is to question its validity. Where did this belief originate? Is it based on objective fact or on past interpretations and emotional experiences? What evidence exists to support this belief, and more importantly, what evidence contradicts it? Often, we will find that these beliefs are not immutable truths, but rather old stories that we have been telling ourselves, stories that no longer serve our growth or authentic aspirations. The process of rewriting involves consciously formulating and internalizing new, more empowering beliefs that align with your desired authentic script. This is not about naive positive affirmations that ignore reality, but about crafting believable alternative narratives that open up new possibilities. For example, instead of "I am not smart enough," a rewritten belief might be, "I am capable of learning and growing, and I can acquire the skills I need." Instead of "I will always be alone," it could be, "I am worthy of love and connection, and I am open to forming meaningful relationships." It is often helpful to find evidence from your own life or the lives of others that supports these new empowering beliefs. This conscious reframing requires consistent effort and repetition. Just as the old limiting beliefs were ingrained through repeated reinforcement, the new beliefs must be actively cultivated. One practical technique involves identifying a limiting belief, then actively seeking out experiences and information that challenge it, while simultaneously repeating your new empowering belief. Visualize yourself successfully embodying this new belief. Act as if it were already true. The mind and body are deeply interconnected, and by consciously shifting our internal dialogue and behaviors, we can begin to create new neural pathways that support our authentic script. This process takes time, patience, and self-compassion. There will be moments when the old beliefs resurface with surprising tenacity. This is normal. The key is to gently acknowledge them without judgment, and then deliberately redirect your focus back to your new, empowering narrative. By consistently challenging your limiting beliefs and consciously cultivating a more expansive and self-affirming internal dialogue, you are fundamentally altering the architecture of your inner world, paving the way for an external reality that more closely reflects your true potential and the authentic life you choose to author. This is the powerful work of reprogramming the ghostwriters within. The journey of unmasking oneself and rewriting a life script can sometimes feel solitary, especially in its initial stages as you begin to deviate from familiar roles and societal expectations. However, true self-authorship is not about isolated individualism. It is also about cultivating and nurturing relationships that genuinely support and reflect your authentic self. Finding your tribe, a term increasingly popular in American vernacular, refers to connecting with a community of like-minded individuals who see you, accept you, and encourage you to live your truth. These are the relationships that provide a safe haven for your emerging authentic self. offering the nourishment and validation that external applause or superficial connections never could. Authentic relationships are starkly different from the performative connections often fostered by inauthentic scripts. In authentic relating, there is no need for masks, pretense, or the constant management of impressions. There is a mutual willingness to be vulnerable, to share openly, and to accept each other with all imperfections. These connections are built on a foundation of trust, respect, and genuine care. Your tribe might consist of a few close friends, supportive family members, mentors, colleagues, or even online communities centered around shared values or passions. The size of your tribe is less important than the quality of the connections within it. In a culture that sometimes prioritizes quantity over quality in social networks, the deliberate cultivation of deep, authentic relationships is a radical act of self-care. Why is finding your tribe so crucial when rewriting your script? Firstly, these relationships provide essential support and encouragement. Stepping away from old scripts and embracing authenticity can be challenging. There will be moments of doubt, fear, and perhaps even resistance from those invested in your old persona. A supportive tribe acts as a secure base, a cheering section reminding you of your courage, your worth, and the validity of your authentic path. They can offer perspective, understanding, and a safe space to process the emotions that arise during this transformative journey. This social support is a powerful buffer against the loneliness that can sometimes accompany periods of significant personal change, particularly the loneliness of not being understood by those still operating within older, more conventional scripts. Secondly, authentic relationships provide a mirror reflecting back your true self. When you are surrounded by people who genuinely see and appreciate your authentic qualities, your passions, your quirks, and even your vulnerabilities, it reinforces your sense of self. Their acceptance helps to validate your internal experience, counteracting the years of conditioning that may have taught you to hide or devalue certain aspects of your being. This is particularly important as you dismantle old limiting beliefs and try on new, more expansive narratives. The feedback and resonance you receive from your tribe can help solidify your emerging authentic identity, providing a real-world experience of being loved and accepted for who you truly are, not for who you pretend to be. This is fundamentally different from the conditional approval sought by the persona. Cultivating these relationships often begins with a commitment to being your authentic self in your interactions. As you show up more authentically, you naturally begin to attract individuals who resonate with your true vibration and repel those who are only connected to your mask. This can sometimes involve a painful but necessary process of letting go of relationships that are based on inauthenticity or that consistently undermine your well-being. It is about choosing quality over quantity, depth over breadth. Seek out people who share your core values, who inspire you, who make you feel seen and heard, and with whom you can share your vulnerabilities without fear of judgment. Joining groups or communities centered around your genuine interests, whether it is a book club, a hiking group, a creative workshop, or a spiritual community, can be a wonderful way to meet kindred spirits. Remember, finding your tribe is not about seeking external validation for a new, improved persona. It is about creating spaces of mutual authenticity where genuine connection and co-authorship of more meaningful life scripts can flourish. These relationships become the fertile ground upon which your authentic self can continue to grow and express itself fully in the world. In our quest to rewrite our life scripts and cultivate authentic relationships, one of the most potent yet often most feared human capacities is vulnerability. Popularized and deeply explored by American researcher and author Dr. Brené Brown, Vulnerability is not weakness, but rather the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. It is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. Embracing vulnerability is a cornerstone of living an authored life because it requires us to dismantle the protective armor of our personas and allow our true imperfect selves to be visible. This can feel incredibly counterintuitive, especially in a culture that often equates vulnerability with frailty and champions, an image of unshakable strength and self-sufficiency. For years, many of us have been conditioned to believe that vulnerability is dangerous, something to be avoided at all costs. We learn to build walls around our hearts, to hide our insecurities, and to project an image of competence and control. These defenses, these carefully constructed scripts, are designed to protect us from perceived threats of judgment, rejection, or emotional pain. However, these same defenses that promise safety also create profound barriers to genuine connection and authentic self-expression. When we are unwilling to be vulnerable, we cannot truly connect with others at a deep soul level. We might have many acquaintances, many superficial interactions, but we will lack the intimate, reciprocal bonds that nourish our spirits and make life truly meaningful. The loneliness of being unseen that we have explored is often a direct consequence of our fear of vulnerability. Dr. Brown's research has powerfully demonstrated that vulnerability is not a choice. We either choose to engage with it consciously, or it manifests in ways that are often more painful and less constructive, such as through numbing behaviors, addictions, or chronic anxiety. The courage to be vulnerable involves embracing uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. It means allowing ourselves to feel deeply, to share our authentic thoughts and feelings, even when it is scary, and to be open to the possibility of both joy and disappointment. It is about taking off the mask and saying, "This is me, my true self, with all my strengths and all my struggles." This act of authentic self-revelation is terrifying for many because it goes against deeply ingrained societal and familial scripts that often reward stoicism and invulnerability. Consider the difference between a relationship built on performative strength and one built on mutual vulnerability. In the former, individuals might present idealized versions of themselves, carefully hiding any perceived flaws or weaknesses. There might be an appearance of harmony, but often a lack of true intimacy and understanding. In a relationship where vulnerability is embraced, individuals feel safe enough to share their fears, their imperfections, and their authentic emotions. This shared vulnerability fosters trust, deepens connection, and creates a space where both individuals can be truly seen and accepted for who they are. This is the kind of connection that nourishes the soul and allows our authentic scripts to unfold. The American ideal of the strong, silent type, or the superwoman who handles everything flawlessly, can inadvertently discourage the very vulnerability that is essential for deep human connection. Embracing vulnerability is a practice that requires courage, self-compassion, and a willingness to lean into discomfort. It might start with small acts of authentic sharing with trusted individuals. It involves learning to identify and articulate our own emotional experiences. It means cultivating a tolerance for uncertainty and imperfection both in ourselves and in others. As we become more comfortable with our own vulnerability, we create a ripple effect, inviting others to also show up more authentically. It is a profound shift from a life script based on protection and control to one based on courage, connection, and genuine self-expression. This is not about oversharing or emotional dumping without discernment, but about cultivating the capacity for appropriate, authentic self-revelation in contexts that feel safe and supportive. By embracing vulnerability, we unlock the door to deeper connections, richer emotional experiences, and the profound liberation that comes from living a life script that is truly aligned with our most authentic, courageous, and imperfectly beautiful human selves. This is where the real magic of rewriting our lives begins. In our increasingly fast-paced, distraction-filled world, a powerful tool for reclaiming your authentic script lies in the ancient yet remarkably contemporary practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of paying attention intentionally to the present moment without judgment. It is about anchoring yourself in the now, rather than being perpetually caught in the regrets of the past or the anxieties of the future. For many Americans grappling with information overload, constant notifications, and the pressure to multitask, mindfulness offers a sanctuary, a way to reconnect with their inner selves and to gain clarity amidst the chaos. This practice is not about emptying the mind, but about becoming more aware of its contents and cultivating a more conscious relationship with our thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations. Living by an unauthentic script often means living on autopilot. Our thoughts are frequently dominated by inherited beliefs, the demands of our persona, or the relentless chatter of the inner critic. Our emotions can be suppressed or unacknowledged. Our bodies may carry chronic tension from years of inauthentic performance. Mindfulness practices gently interrupt this state of unconscious reactivity. By bringing focused attention to our breath, to the sensations in our body, or to the sounds around us, we create a space between ourselves and our habitual patterns of thinking and feeling. In this space, we can begin to observe our internal landscape with greater objectivity and less reactivity. We can notice the scripts that are running in the background without automatically identifying with them or being swept away by them. One of the core benefits of mindfulness in rewriting your life script is increased self-awareness. As you consistently practice paying attention to your inner world, you become more attuned to your authentic feelings, needs, and values. You start to recognize the subtle cues from your body and emotions that signal when you are aligned with your true self and when you are straying into an inauthentic script. For instance, through mindful observation, you might notice a recurring feeling of tightness in your chest when you are about to agree to a commitment that goes against your values, or a sense of expansiveness and joy when you are engaged in an activity that truly nourishes your soul. These internal signals are invaluable guides on the path to self-authorship. The American focus on doing can sometimes overshadow the importance of being, and mindfulness cultivates this essential capacity for presence. Mindfulness also helps to disarm the inner critic. By observing critical thoughts as they arise without judgment, we begin to see them as merely mental events rather than as absolute truths about ourselves. We can acknowledge their presence without giving them undue power. This creates a crucial distance, allowing us to choose not to engage with the critic's negative narratives, and instead to consciously shift our attention to more self-compassionate and empowering thoughts. This is not about suppressing the critic, but about changing our relationship to it, diminishing its hold on our internal dialogue, and thereby on our life script. Practices like loving-kindness, meditation, which are becoming increasingly popular in the West, can further cultivate this compassionate stance towards ourselves. There are many simple ways to integrate mindfulness into daily life. It can be as straightforward as taking a few conscious breaths before responding to a stressful situation, mindfully savoring a meal, or paying full attention during a conversation. Formal meditation practices such as sitting meditation or walking meditation can provide a more structured way to cultivate this quality of present moment awareness. Numerous apps and resources are available offering guided meditations and mindfulness exercises, making this practice accessible to almost anyone. The key is not the duration of the practice, but the consistency and the intention. By regularly anchoring yourself in the present moment through mindfulness, you cultivate the clarity, discernment, and inner peace necessary to consciously choose and live by a life script that is truly your own one, that emerges from a place of authentic self-knowledge rather than unconscious conditioning or external pressures. This presence is the fertile ground from which an authored life blossoms. The renowned mythologist Joseph Campbell dedicated his life to studying the myths and legends of cultures across the globe. Through his extensive research, he identified a universal pattern, a fundamental story structure that appears again and again in these diverse narratives. He called it the monomyth, or more popularly, the hero's journey. This framework offers a powerful archetypal lens through which we can understand our own journey of unmasking our true selves and rewriting our life scripts. Recognizing our personal struggles and transformations as echoes of this universal quest can be incredibly empowering, providing a sense of meaning and direction to what might otherwise feel like a chaotic or isolated experience. Campbell's work resonates deeply with the American spirit of adventure, pioneering, and the quest for individual meaning. The hero's journey typically begins with the hero living in an ordinary world, often feeling a sense of dissatisfaction or a call to something more, a restlessness that we have discussed as a symptom of an unlived life. This is the call to adventure. Initially, the hero may resist this call due to fear, insecurity, or the comfort of the familiar, echoing our own hesitation to step outside our pre-written scripts. This refusal of the call is a common stage reflecting our fear of freedom and the unknown. However, circumstances or an inner urging eventually compel the hero to cross the threshold into a special world, a realm of challenge, trial, and transformation. This mirrors our own decision to consciously engage with our inner world, to confront our shadows, and to begin the work of rewriting our narrative. Once in this special world, the hero encounters trials, tests, allies, and enemies. They face their deepest fears, confront their weaknesses, and often experience a form of death and rebirth, a symbolic letting go of old ways of being. This is akin to the difficult but necessary work of dismantling old personas, challenging limiting beliefs, and integrating disowned aspects of the self. The hero often receives guidance from a mentor or wise figure, much like we might seek support from a therapist, a trusted friend, or our own inner wisdom through practices like journaling or active imagination. These trials are not mere obstacles. They are opportunities for growth, learning, and the discovery of hidden strengths. Many heroic myths in American popular culture, from Star Wars to countless superhero sagas, follow this very pattern, highlighting its enduring appeal. A crucial stage in the hero's journey is the innermost cave, or the abyss, where the hero faces their greatest challenge, their deepest fear, often symbolized by a dragon or a descent into the underworld. This mirrors our confrontation with our core wounds, our deepest insecurities, or the most powerful aspects of our shadow. It is in this crucible that a profound transformation occurs, the death of the old self and the emergence of a more authentic, empowered self. The hero seizes the sword or claims the treasure, which can be understood psychologically as a newfound self-knowledge, a deeper connection to their authentic being, or a significant personal insight. This is the moment of true self-reclamation, where the power to author one's own script is truly embraced. Having undergone this transformation, the hero then begins the road back, the journey to return to the ordinary world, bringing with them the wisdom or elixir gained from their quest. This return is not always easy. The hero may face further challenges in integrating their newfound understanding into their everyday life. Similarly, as we rewrite our scripts and begin to live more authentically, we may encounter resistance from our old environment or struggle to maintain our new way of being amidst old pressures. The final stage is the resurrection and the return with the elixir, where the hero has fully integrated their transformation and can now share their wisdom or gifts with their community. They have not just changed themselves, they have the potential to positively impact the world around them. Viewing your own journey of self-authorship through the lens of the hero's journey can provide immense comfort, validation, and inspiration. It reframes your personal struggles as part of a timeless, universal quest for authenticity and meaning, connecting your individual story to the grand narrative of human becoming. You are the hero of your own mythic quest, bravely answering the call to live a life that is uniquely and authentically yours. We now transition into the final empowering part of our shared journey, living the authored life, sustaining your truth. Having reclaimed the pen and equipped ourselves with tools for rewriting our scripts, we now focus on the art and practice of living this newly authored life consistently and authentically. A core concept that underpins this sustained transformation is Carl Jung's idea of individuation, the lifelong psychological process of becoming an individual that is a separate, indivisible unity, or whole. It is the journey towards self-realization, where we integrate the conscious and unconscious aspects of our personality, bringing forth our unique potential and becoming more fully the person we are truly meant to be. This is not a destination to be reached, but an ongoing dynamic process, a way of life. This continuous unfolding resonates with the American value of personal growth and the ongoing pursuit of becoming one's best self, but with a deeper Jungian emphasis on inner wholeness rather than solely external achievement. Individuation is the psyche's innate, striving towards wholeness. Just as an acorn has the inherent potential to become a mighty oak tree, each individual, according to Jung, has an innate blueprint for their unique, authentic self. However, the scripts imposed by family, society, and our own unexamined conditioning can often obscure or hinder this natural process of unfolding. The journey of rewriting our life script, then, is essentially the conscious engagement with our individuation process. It is about actively removing the internal and external obstacles that prevent our true selves from emerging and blossoming. It requires us to move beyond simply deconstructing old limiting narratives and to actively cultivate the qualities, expressions, and experiences that align with our authentic core. This ongoing process is characterized by several key elements. Firstly, it involves a continued deepening of self-awareness. As we live more authentically, we become more attuned to the subtle messages of our unconscious mind, our dreams, our intuitions, our bodily sensations. We learn to trust these internal guides more readily. We become more adept at recognizing when old scripts or shadow aspects are attempting to reassert themselves, and we develop the capacity to respond to these moments with conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction. This self-awareness is not a one-time achievement, but a lifelong practice of paying attention to our inner landscape with curiosity and compassion. The American cultural focus on quick fixes and immediate results can sometimes make this patient, ongoing inner work seem less appealing, but it is fundamental to sustained, authentic living. Secondly, individuation necessitates the courage to live in alignment with our authentic values, even when this path diverges from societal norms or familiar expectations. This means continually making choices that honor our true self, even if those choices are difficult or unpopular. It might involve choosing a career path that is less lucrative, but more fulfilling setting boundaries in relationships that challenge established dynamics, or pursuing passions that seem unconventional. Living an individuated life is inherently a courageous act, because it often requires us to stand apart from the crowd to define our own measures of success and meaning. This is not about rebellious defiance for its own sake, but about a deep allegiance to our own inner truth. Thirdly, the process of individuation is deeply intertwined with our relationships and our connection to something larger than ourselves. While it involves becoming a more distinct individual, it does not mean becoming isolated. In fact, as we become more authentically ourselves, we often develop the capacity for deeper, more genuine connections with others, connections based on mutual respect and authentic resonance, rather than on shared personas or societal roles. Furthermore, individuation often leads to a sense of connection with what Jung called the self, the unifying center of the psyche, and sometimes a transpersonal dimension of meaning or spirituality. This sense of being part of something larger can provide profound comfort, purpose, and a sense of belonging that transcends individual ego concerns. Ultimately, the ongoing process of individuation is the art of becoming more fully human, more uniquely ourselves, and more deeply connected to the life that is authentically ours. It is the continuous unfolding of our inherent potential, a journey of a lifetime that imbues our existence with profound meaning, purpose, and an ever-evolving sense of wholeness. This is the true essence of living an authored life, a life scripted from the courageous, authentic core of our being. Living an authored life, a life scripted from your authentic core, is not a singular achievement that once attained remains static. It is a dynamic, ongoing practice, a continuous navigation of the internal and external landscapes. As you commit to living more authentically, you will inevitably encounter moments when old scripts, ingrained habits, and familiar personas attempt to reassert themselves. These are not signs of failure but natural occurrences on the path of individuation, testing your resolve and offering opportunities for deeper self-understanding and recommitment to your chosen narrative. For the American listener who often values progress and overcoming obstacles, this chapter focuses on the practical realities and strategies for sustaining authenticity in a world that can still exert powerful pressures to conform. Old scripts have deep roots. They were often formed in response to powerful emotional needs for safety, belonging, or approval. Therefore, even after you have consciously decided to rewrite your narrative, these old patterns can be triggered by specific situations, people, or emotional states. You might find yourself reverting to a people-pleasing persona in a conflict-avoidant family gathering, or feeling the pull of an old achievement-driven script when faced with professional pressure. The inner critic, too, may seize upon these moments of vulnerability, amplifying doubts and urging you to return to the safety of familiar roles. It is crucial to recognize these moments, not with self-condemnation, but with mindful awareness. This is the old script trying to resurface. This is the inner critic at work. This awareness itself creates a space to choose a different response. One powerful strategy for navigating these moments is to consciously reconnect with your core values and your authentic script. Remind yourself of what truly matters to you, of the life you are intending to create. Having your core values written down or easily accessible can be incredibly helpful. When faced with a decision or a situation that tempts you back into an old pattern, ask yourself which choice aligns more closely with my authentic self and my core values. Which path will lead to greater integrity and genuine fulfillment, rather than temporary external validation or the avoidance of discomfort. This conscious reorientation is a powerful anchor. The American cultural emphasis on goals and mission statements can be usefully applied here to your personal life script to reinforce your chosen direction. Practicing self-compassion, as we discussed earlier, is vital when old scripts re-emerge. It is easy to fall into self-criticism, thinking, "I should be past this by now." However, real change is rarely linear. There will be ups and downs, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. Meeting these challenges with kindness and understanding rather than harsh judgment allows you to learn from them and to gently guide yourself back to your authentic path. Remember that these old scripts were once adaptive strategies. They served a purpose. Thank them for their past service, and then consciously choose the new script that reflects who you are becoming. Building and maintaining a supportive tribe is also essential for sustaining authenticity. Share your struggles and your victories with trusted individuals who understand and support your journey of self-authorship. Their encouragement, their perspective, and their willingness to see and reflect your authentic self can be invaluable when you are feeling an old script's pull. These relationships provide a counterweight to the societal or familial pressures that might try to draw you back into conformity. Furthermore, continue to engage in practices that keep you connected to your inner world, such as journaling, meditation, spending time in nature, or engaging in creative activities. These practices fortify your connection to your authentic voice and make it easier to discern its guidance amidst the noise of external demands and internal saboteurs. Sustaining an authored life is a dance between conscious intention, mindful awareness, self-compassion, and courageous action. It is about consistently choosing the path of authenticity, even when it is challenging, knowing that this is the path to a life of profound meaning, genuine connection, and lasting inner peace. For much of our lives, many of us have been conditioned to equate success and happiness with external achievements and societal validation. The script often dictates that joy and meaning are found in a prestigious career, financial abundance, a perfect family, or a certain level of social status. This is a particularly strong narrative in aspirational cultures like the United States, where the pursuit of happiness is enshrined as a fundamental right, often interpreted through the lens of material attainment and outward to accomplishment. However, as we begin to live a more authored life, a life scripted from our authentic core, we discover that true joy and profound meaning often lie beyond these conventional societal metrics. They are not destinations to be reached through external striving, but qualities of experience that emerge from within when we live in alignment with our deepest selves. The relentless pursuit of societally defined success can often be a treadmill, a never-ending chase for the next goal, the next accolade, the next possession. Each achievement may bring a temporary sense of satisfaction or relief, but the underlying feeling of not enoughness often persists. This is because external achievements alone cannot fill an internal void. True lasting joy is an inside job. It arises not from what we have, but from who we are, from the quality of our presence, our connections, and our alignment with our authentic values. When our life script is primarily focused on external metrics, we can find ourselves constantly comparing ourselves to others, feeling pressured to keep up, and ultimately experiencing a sense of hollowness, even amidst apparent success. The American cultural emphasis on more is better can inadvertently fuel this cycle, keeping us on a hamster wheel of striving without ever arriving at genuine contentment. Finding joy and meaning in an authored life involves a radical redefinition of what success and happiness truly mean to you. It requires detaching your self-worth from external outcomes and instead rooting it in the inherent value of your authentic being. What activities bring you a sense of genuine aliveness, flow, and engagement, regardless of whether they lead to external recognition or financial reward? Perhaps it is creative expression, spending time in nature, nurturing deep relationships, engaging in acts of service, or pursuing intellectual or spiritual growth. These are often the sources of intrinsic joy, the activities that make your soul sing. An authored life script makes space for these deeply nourishing pursuits, not as frivolous hobbies, but as essential components of a meaningful existence. Meaning, too, is not something to be found out there in a grand achievement or a perfectly curated life. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, powerfully argued in his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, that meaning can be found in all circumstances, even in suffering, through the attitude we choose to take towards our experiences, and through the dedication to a cause greater than ourselves or to another person. In an authored life, meaning is not imposed from the outside, but discovered from within. It emerges from living in alignment with your core values, from expressing your unique gifts in service to something you care about, and from cultivating deep, authentic connections. This could be found in mentoring others, in advocating for a cause you believe in creating art that touches hearts, or simply in bringing more kindness and presence to your daily interactions. The scale of the impact is less important than the authenticity of the intention. This shift from seeking external validation to cultivating internal joy and meaning is a profound transformation. It is a movement from a script based on having and doing to one based on being and connecting. It requires courage to step off the societal treadmill and to define your own path. It may mean making choices that seem unconventional or are not readily understood by those still operating within older scripts. Yet the rewards are immeasurable: a deep sense of inner peace, a vibrant aliveness, and a profound knowing that you are living a life that is authentically and meaningfully your own. This is the true pursuit of happiness, not as an elusive external goal, but as the natural byproduct of a life scripted from the heart, the soul, and your most authentic truth. This redefinition frees us to find joy in the simple moments, meaning in our unique contributions, and a lasting contentment that is unshaken by the shifting sands of external circumstances. As we navigate the ongoing journey of living an authored life, consciously scripting our days from a place of authenticity, core values, and inner truth, we often discover a profound and unexpected byproduct. Our commitment to our own authentic unfolding creates ripples that extend far beyond our personal experience, influencing and inspiring those around us. The legacy of an authored life is not merely measured in personal fulfillment or individual achievement, though these are valuable in themselves. It is also measured in the quiet yet powerful inspiration we offer to others to embark on their own courageous quests for authenticity. In a culture like America that values leadership and making an impact, living your truth becomes a potent form of leading by example. When others witness you, living with integrity, aligning your actions with your values, setting healthy boundaries, and embracing your vulnerabilities, it can awaken something within them. They see a different way of being, a possibility they may not have previously considered. Your courage to step outside conventional scripts can give them permission to question their own. Your willingness to be imperfectly human can create a safe space for them to acknowledge their own imperfections. This is not about actively trying to change or fix others. It is about the subtle yet profound impact of embodied authenticity. When you live your truth, you become a living testament to the possibility that others can live theirs too. This is particularly powerful for younger generations in the United States, who are often searching for more authentic role models in a world saturated with curated images and performative success. The legacy of an authored life often manifests in the quality of your relationships. As you become more authentic, you naturally attract and cultivate connections based on genuine resonance rather than superficial agreement or shared personas. These authentic relationships become beacons of what is possible for others, demonstrating that intimacy, trust, and mutual support can flourish when individuals are willing to show up as their true selves. Your friends, your family members, your colleagues may be inspired by the depth and genuineness of your connections, encouraging them to seek similar authenticity in their own relational lives. You model a way of relating that is not based on control, manipulation, or people-pleasing, but on mutual respect, understanding, and the courageous embrace of vulnerability. Furthermore, living your authored life often unleashes your unique gifts and contributions to the world in a more potent and impactful way. When your work, your creative expression, or your acts of service are aligned with your authentic passions and values, they carry a different kind of energy, of vibrancy and purpose that can inspire and uplift others. The artist who creates from their soul, the entrepreneur who builds a business based on genuine ethical principles, the teacher who shares their passion with heartfelt enthusiasm, these individuals do more than just perform a function. They offer something unique and valuable to the world, something that can only come from a place of authentic alignment. This inspiring contribution is a core part of the legacy of an authored life. The American spirit of innovation and contribution finds its deepest and most sustainable expression when it is fueled by authentic passion rather than solely by external motivators. Ultimately, the legacy you leave is not defined by grand gestures or public accolades, though these may sometimes occur. It is woven into the fabric of your daily interactions, the choices you make, the way you treat yourself and others, and the quiet courage with which you live your truth. It is in the permission you give others to be themselves, simply by being yourself. It is in the hope you inspire that it is possible to break free from limiting scripts and to create a life of genuine meaning and fulfillment. Every individual who embarks on the journey of self-authorship contributes to a collective shift towards a more authentic, conscious, and compassionate world. Your personal quest for authenticity is therefore not just a personal endeavor. It is a gift to those whose lives you touch, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to write its own magnificent story. This is the ripple effect, the true and lasting impact of courageously choosing to live your truth. As we draw towards the culmination of our journey through these pages, a singular, powerful truth emerges with undeniable clarity. A truth that holds the key to profound transformation and lasting fulfillment. You are the author, the director, and the star of your own life. This is not a mere platitude, a feel-good affirmation to be briefly acknowledged and then forgotten. It is a fundamental existential reality, a profound responsibility and an immense privilege. For too long, many of us have unconsciously abdicated this inherent power, allowing external scripts, familial legacies, societal pressures, or unexamined inner conditionings to dictate the narrative of our existence. But the pen has always been in your hand, even if you were unaware of it or felt unqualified to use it. Reclaiming this authorship is the ultimate act of empowerment. To be the author means you have the capacity to define the themes, the plot, and the purpose of your life story. It means consciously choosing the values that will guide your narrative and the meaning you will derive from your experiences. No longer are you bound by the scripts handed down to you unless you consciously choose to incorporate elements that genuinely resonate with your authentic self. You can edit, you can revise, you can begin entirely new chapters. The story of your life is not a fixed, immutable text. It is a dynamic, evolving creation, and you are its primary creator. This creative power is intrinsic to your being, a birthright that can never be truly taken away, only temporarily relinquished. The American ethos of self-invention and reinventing oneself finds its deepest and most authentic expression in this conscious authorship, not as a superficial rebranding, but as a genuine alignment with evolving inner truth. To be the director means you have the power to choose how your story unfolds, the scenes you will inhabit, the supporting characters you will invite into your narrative, and the overall tone and atmosphere of your life. You decide which inner voices get a leading role and which ones are relegated to background noise. Will the inner critic direct your daily scenes, filling them with anxiety and self-doubt? Or will you choose to give the director's chair to your authentic self, guiding your actions with wisdom, compassion, and courage? You have the agency to stage your life in a way that supports your well-being and allows your unique gifts to shine. This involves making conscious choices about your environment, your relationships, your work, and how you engage with the world. Directing your life is about intentionality, shaping your experiences rather than passively reacting to them. To be the star of your life means fully inhabiting your unique being, embracing your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your passions, and your imperfections. It means stepping out from behind the masks, from the shadows of conformity, and allowing your authentic self to take center stage. This is not about egotism or a demand for constant attention. It is about recognizing and honoring your inherent worth, your unique contribution, and your right to live a life that is true to who you are. When you are the star of your own life, you are no longer waiting for external validation to feel significant or valuable. Your significance comes from within, from the courageous act of living authentically. The world needs your unique light, your authentic presence. When you fully claim your role as the star, you inspire others to do the same, creating a world where more individuals are living from a place of genuine self-expression rather than prescribed roles. This realization that you are the author, the director, and the star is both exhilarating and sobering. It is exhilarating because it means you have the power to create a life of profound meaning, joy, and authenticity. It is sobering because it means you can no longer abdicate responsibility for your choices, your happiness, or the script you are living. There are no external saviors, no magic formulas that will write your perfect life for you. The power and the responsibility reside within you. This journey of reclaiming your narrative is about waking up to this inherent capacity. It is about picking up the pen with intention. It is about directing your scenes with conscious awareness. It is about shining brightly as the unique, authentic star you were always meant to be. The story of your life is waiting to be written by you, for you. And the most magnificent chapters are yet to unfold when you fully embrace your role as its ultimate creator. We stand now at the threshold, not an ending, but a profound new beginning. Throughout our journey together, we have unmasked. The ghostwriters explored the shadows and reclaimed the tools of self-authorship. The pen is now firmly in your hand. The final chapter is not a conclusion to your story. It is an open invitation, a powerful call to conscious creation as you step forward to write the next chapter of your uniquely authored life. This is where the insights we have gained transform into embodied wisdom, where understanding translates into the lived experience of authenticity, purpose, and profound connection. The American spirit of innovation and fearless pioneering is perfectly suited to this continuous act of scripting and re-scripting one's life with courage and intentionality. The journey of living an authored life is not a passive affair. It demands active engagement, conscious choice, and a willingness to embrace the ongoing process of becoming. Your life is not a static manuscript to be completed and shelved. It is a living, dynamic narrative that you have the power to shape and reshape with every decision you make, every action you take, every thought you choose to cultivate. This ongoing creation is fueled by a deep connection to your authentic self, your core values, and your unique understanding of meaning and purpose. It is about listening to the evolving whispers of your soul and courageously translating those whispers into the tangible reality of your daily existence. There will be moments of clarity and flow, and there will be moments of doubt and challenge. This is all part of the creative process, the rich texture of an authentically lived life. As you move forward, carry with you the understanding that you are not defined by your past scripts, by societal expectations, or by the limitations others may have tried to impose upon you. You are defined by your capacity to choose to create and to continually align yourself with your deepest truth. This requires ongoing vigilance and commitment. The old scripts may try to creep back in, especially during times of stress or uncertainty. The inner critic may still attempt to sow seeds of doubt. This is where your cultivated self-awareness, your self-compassion, and your connection to your supportive tribe become invaluable anchors. Remember the tools we have: explored the courage to be disliked, the practice of journaling, the embrace of vulnerability, the art of saying no, and the conscious rewriting of limiting beliefs. These are not merely intellectual concepts, they are lifelong practices for navigating the world authentically. Consider what you want your next chapter to be about. What values do you want to embody more fully? What passions are calling for expression? What contributions do you feel uniquely poised to make? Do not be afraid to dream big, to step outside your comfort zone, and to script a life that truly excites and inspires you. The fear of failure or the fear of the unknown may arise, but remember the lessons of the hero's journey. These are not obstacles to be avoided, but challenges to be met, opportunities for growth, and the discovery of deeper strengths. The American narrative often celebrates bold action and the pursuit of dreams. Channel this spirit not into chasing external validation, but into the courageous creation of a life that is authentically aligned with your soul's calling. Ultimately, the most profound legacy of an authored life is not just your own fulfillment, but the inspiration and permission you offer to others. By living your truth, you illuminate the path for those around you, demonstrating that it is possible to break free from limiting narratives and to create a life of genuine meaning, connection, and joy. Your story becomes a testament to the power of conscious creation, a ripple of authenticity in a world often hungry for genuine connection and true self-expression. So take the pen with courage, with compassion, and with unwavering commitment to your own unfolding. The next chapter is yours to write, and the world is waiting to witness the unique and magnificent story that only you can tell. Let it be a story worthy of your authentic self, a narrative filled with purpose, passion, and the profound peace that comes from living a life truly your own.